Chapter 186. The gunfire in the command center gradually died down, because all the mercenaries who had come to support them had fallen. Jiao Mao and Ren Tu leaned against the steel plates and gasped for breath. They couldn't believe what had just happened. Although it didn't take much effort for an advanced warrior to deal with mercenaries, how long had it been? The two groups of mercenaries had a total of more than 100 people, and there was no lack of origin ability users and beginner warriors among them. They had actually been wiped out by Ding Ming in such an unimaginable way. In fact, the two of them were most shocked by Ding Ming's strength, especially Jiao Mao. Before he left, he had specifically searched for information about Ding Ming in the Extreme Heaven Corporation's database. It said that Ding Ming's strength is above that of a beginner warrior, and he already has a strong foundation. This additional comment had been made by Miss Bing herself. But now, it seemed that Ding Ming wasn't just a beginner warrior. He was a solid advanced warrior, and this advanced warrior already had a strong foundation. He was definitely much stronger than the average advanced warrior. Jiao Mao was still in shock. Suddenly, a white ball of light appeared in the pile of corpses at the door. After a few seconds, the light disappeared, and a black Hercules predator armor appeared. It had the body of a standard mantis, and it waved 6 mechanical arms that were bearing fangs and brandishing claws. This wasn't reinforcements. Ren Zhan had taken advantage of the chaos to open the armor box he had brought with him and quickly equip himself in the midst of the large-scale gunfire. Although he had equipped the armor, he was actually secretly regretting it. He should have equipped it when he saw Ding Ming appear. In the end, underestimating the enemy was the natural enemy of every warrior. He had always thought that with the combined strength of himself, Ren Tu, and Jiao Mao, no matter how strong Ding Ming was, he wouldn't be able to turn the tables. In the end, when Ding Ming showed his true strength, it was too late. Ding Ming's overlord's mountain-crushing force had injured him quite badly. Now, even though he had equipped the armor through the transmission of the power core, the main interface showed that his combat value was 87,882 points. If it was during normal times, this battle value would increase to 114,399 points. This is the strength of a beginner war elder. No matter how strong you, Ding Ming, are, I don't believe that you can surpass this value. But it was too late to say anything now. Ren Zhan didn't waste his breath and simply raised his left arm. Herak's mechanical arm immediately changed shape, and a blue metal ball extended from the inside. Energy arcs jumped around it, and then a string of fiery red laser particles poured out with a shio 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 sound. This was the miniature particle cannon on the armor. Ding Ming also knew that this thing was not an ordinary energy gun and could not be taken head-on. It wasn't that they couldn't handle it at all. It was still the same principle. It was best to fight a battle of attrition less and quickly kill the enemy. Surprisingly, Ding Ming did not choose to dodge or roll. Instead, he retreated to a corner and ran along the wall towards the north of the hall. Herak's armor was worthy of being a mainstream 6th-generation product. The red electric particles did not shoot in a straight line, but in a strange arc. It was like a chain of lightning that constantly twisted and changed. If he dodged or rolled, he would definitely be hit. Moreover, the fiery red electric particles did not explode when they hit the steel plate. Half a second later, there was a puff of smoke, and then the alloy steel plate turned into molten steel. At first, Ding Ming was still running on the ground, but as his speed increased, his boots stepped on the wall, and he actually ran along the wall in a half arc before landing. When Ren Zhan's second round of shots came, Ding Ming actually miraculously dodged, leaving behind a trail of fiery red molten steel along the way. This was a light-speed martial arts technique that he had learned from Xing He Gale. It used constant stacking of speed to adjust the steps to achieve the effect of using the terrain to dodge. Of course, this martial arts technique was only similar in appearance. If a light-speed origin ability user were to use Gale here, they would have disappeared in a few ups and downs. However, even if it was not, the electroparticle laser cannon still could not hit Ding Ming. On the contrary, after a few rounds of shooting, the hall was set ablaze. Ren Zhan did not dare to shoot anymore, because the sound of the system rang out in the hall. Warning, warning, the communication system is under attack. The damage is 33%. The communication system is malfunctioning. The estimated time to repair is 3 minutes and 30 seconds. Rinzhan really could not take this lying down. This Ding Meng was really too cunning. He purposely lured the firepower towards the main control area in the north. His goal was very sinister. Shoot as much as you want. I can't wait for you to turn the control center into ashes. Then, I'll make you guys risk your lives to fix it. After all, Meteor City is currently floating towards outer space. Herak's armor quickly retracted its cannon. The mechanical arm transformed again, and 2 laser knives appeared. This 6-leaf rotating laser blade looked like a willow leaf from afar, but in fact, it was like a long rotating wheel. When the armor rushed over, the laser blades were like 2 super drills that rolled up on the ground. Countless alloy steel plates and unconscious mercenaries were twisted into powder. Ding Meng still did not seem to dare to take the attack head-on. He kept retreating. He tiptoed lightly and retreated more than 10 meters. Rinzhan simply took out 4 laser knives and used the armor's 4 forelimbs to chop at Ding Meng, as if he was cutting vegetables. Many people knew the characteristics of mantises. Their forearms were unusually strong and sharp, and their attacking style was also quite fierce. It had to be said that Rinzhan had made full use of this characteristic and forced Ding Meng to keep retreating. He had no time to fight back at all. He chopped faster and faster, and the chase became more and more urgent. Because the crystal eyes kept feeding back the real-time data, the main interface reminded him that the enemy's combat value was constantly increasing. Originally, Ding Meng's combat value was 61,203 points. When he was dodging the electroparticles, it was 68,022 points. Now, it had soared to 75,666 points. The trend did not show any signs of stopping. It seemed that it was still going to rise. Rinzhan could not hold it any longer. The 4 knives slashed down at the same time. After a series of cracking sounds, a square pit appeared in the center of the hall. Unfortunately, Ding Meng was not in the pit. Ding Meng seemed to have expected this move. When the laser knives were chopping down, he did not retreat. Instead, he moved forward. His body suddenly shrank and slid out from under the mantis' stomach like a slippery fish. "You're going to die," Rinzhan roared. He controlled the armor to turn around quickly. The mantis' chest suddenly spat out a white crystal-like cylinder. This thing flew into the air and split into a dazzling hexagonal net of light. The net of light covered Ding Meng, who was still sliding at lightning speed. This was the energy hunting net on Herc's armor. It had an automatic tracking function. After being locked on by the system, it was very difficult to avoid. Ding Meng jumped up while sliding and landed on the ground with a somersault. A golden diamond mirror image appeared on her body with a zhung sound. The light net bound the mirror image with a pa sound and quickly tightened. The surface of the mirror image was smoking with a chi-chi-chi sound. It was obvious that the energy of the hunting net was not weak. "Let's see if you can still run away." Rinzhan did not hesitate this time. He waved the laser knives and rushed out again. At the same time, the armor's firepower was fully activated. The chest on the mantis' shoulder opened, and 4 Stinger missiles flew up at lightning speed. Boom! 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 This level of explosion was not the least bit inferior to the previous light pupil. The energy generated by the huge explosion shook all the crystal plates and facilities on the 19th floor into pieces. Even Jia Mao and Butcher, who were in the distance, were swept up by the huge debris. The 2 of them could not help but cover their eyes. However, the diamond mirror image still did not shatter. Ding Meng, who was inside the shield, closed his eyes and put his palms together. He was motionless like an old monk in meditation. Not good. Rinzhan finally realized what was truly terrifying about Ding Meng. As he rushed out, the main interface suddenly flashed red. This was a high-risk warning signal. He only glanced at it, and his heart skipped a beat. Ding Meng's combat value was originally 80,230 points, but it suddenly increased by a large margin. The interface showed that it was now 94,559 points. Rinjan thought he was seeing things, but the system did not have 4 eyes. It could not be seeing things. When he looked again, he found that Ding Ming's combat value had exploded to a terrifying 116,666 points. It was even higher than his own combat value, even if he equipped the armor. It was too late for Rinjan to change his mind now. There was no way he could do something like emergency braking. Ding Ming suddenly opened his eyes. He pushed his palms together to the sides. His whole body stretched out, and then he let out a shocking roar. Ah! With a swoosh, a visible but immaterial air wave burst forth like a halo spreading out. Together with the diamond mirror image, it was blasted out. This was the Overlord's mountain-crushing force that he had displayed with his true strength. The huge battle armor was sent flying into the air, and the laser knife was immediately thrown out of his hand. The mantis limbs were flailing in the air, and it had obviously lost its center of gravity. As a result, there was no suspense as it fell back into the big hole it had created. This roar was so powerful that it could swallow mountains and rivers. Not only did it shatter all the crystal glass on the 19th floor's outer wall, it also knocked out 2 Jiamao in the distance and made him collapse into a ball. Looking from the square outside, an unprecedentedly violent explosion occurred on the 19th floor of the building. Countless glass shards fell from the sky, with fire raining down on the heads of the crowd. Along with the rain of fire, there were also pieces of sharp steel plates. Many people couldn't dodge in time and were scraped by the steel plates. Some were smashed to death, some were cut to death, some were scratched, some were fanned away, and some were set ablaze, screaming for help. The number of casualties was truly innumerable. In the distance, beside a hidden entrance gate, a small shuttle car that was flying at high speed suddenly stopped. Looking back through the window, Dai clenched her hands and frowned into a line. She secretly prayed in her heart, "Ding Ming, cousin Ding Ming, you must not die. You must come back alive. I really don't want you to die in a place like this." Seeing her so worried that she was about to cry, the King of Nightmares on the main seat sighed and said, "Miss Dai, Mr. Ting will be fine. We just have to wait for him as we agreed." Seeing such a shocking scene outside the perimeter of the battle, the marshal also sighed. "I'm the one who's blind." Thinking back to how I treated Ding Ming in the past, I didn't expect him to save me in the end. "Don't worry, Miss Dai. I'll send you to the ship, even if it costs me my life." Chapter 187. The command center had turned into a sea of fire, but the battle was still going on. Herc's armor was knocked to the ground, and the system immediately sent out a warning. Current overall damage is 16, 55%. Detection system damage is 72, 66%. Transmission system destroyed. Main weapon lost. System needs to recharge. Estimated recharge time, 48 seconds. Rinjan stopped listening. The situation in front of him didn't allow him to be distracted. Although Ding Ming's Overlord's mountain-crushing force could not shatter the expensive armor, he retracted his raised hands and put his palms together again. Then, he stretched his palms forward and released his psychokinesis. Clang! A dark golden light shot out from his waist, and the longsword rose into the air with his hand gesture. It turned into a sharp beam of light and stabbed at the armor like lightning. The stab was aimed at the chest area of Herc's armor, where the cockpit was located. How could a normal sword pierce through armor? Even an alloy blade or a serrated sword couldn't. But looking at Ding Ming's movements, posture, and extraordinary aura, Rinjan knew that this sword was no small matter. He didn't even have time to stand up. He crossed his palms in front of his chest, and the mantis's arms changed shape again. 2 feather-like double-sided alloy blades popped out and blocked the long sword with a click sound at the speed of lightning. Ugh! Rinjan's face instantly turned purple. The flying longsword seemed to weigh more than 1,000 pounds. It wasn't a sword at all. In his mind, it was a super alloy drill that kept drilling forward. It wouldn't stop until he was dead. Rinjan used all his strength with his palms. Sweat poured down his forehead, but the longsword still moved forward bit by bit. The alloy blade emitted dazzling sparks, and the blade was chipped. Ah! Rinjan, who was in pain, roared again. He used the alloy blade to push the long sword away bit by bit. He was fighting with all his might, but Ding Ming also changed her posture. She retracted her arms slightly and suddenly opened her palms. She pushed them forward fiercely, just like Jia Mao's sacred tiger yang palm, with an indestructible and masculine aura. Kacha, the alloy blade, instantly broke into 4 pieces. The long sword pierced through Mantis' chest like a bolt of lightning. Inside the armor, the main interface suddenly shattered and the screen turned black. The tip of the sword drilled out of the screen like a viper and hit Rinjan's forehead. There was no blood because the sword was condensed with very high temperature heat. As soon as the sword pierced into Rinjan's forehead, the sound of flesh and blood burning could be clearly heard. Rinjan's had emitted a large amount of light smoke. His eyes rolled back, and his mouth, nose, and face twitched and twisted together. His death was extremely horrifying. In the center of the hall, all the energy sources of Herak's armor were extinguished. His huge body tilted and fell to the ground like a praying mantis. Once the pilot inside died, the armor would become a dead object. Ding Ming waved his hand again and took back the sword. He twirled the sword in the air and finally put it back in his scabbard with a click. Only then did Ding Ming open his mouth and spit out a mouthful of white smoke. He had used up a lot of energy in the battle just now. The 7th origin point had not been strengthened to perfection, but it had a bonus effect. It could be used to melt energy through the 7 bright lines. Now, he finally experienced the power of the Origin Energy War Sovereign. A beginner warrior equipped with armor, like the Black Rock Knight, could still fight against a high-level warrior, but a high-level warrior equipped with armor, like Herak's Predator, had no chance in front of the Origin Energy War Sovereign. The disparity between such a large level was truly like a natural chasm that spanned across. Looking at the raging flames in the hall, Ding Ming couldn't help but think of the Norse Empire's elder phone and that sister Joan. They were so strong that even he found it difficult to breathe. He really didn't know how strong they were. Little Rascal finally said proudly, "How is it? Do you believe me now? The Origin Energy War Sovereign strength is still not bad." Ding Ming nodded. Previously, he would definitely find it difficult to train with any 2 of Rinjan, Rin-Tu, and Jia Mao. But now, the 3 of them were either dead or injured. They were no longer a threat to him. So he couldn't be bothered with the 2 unconscious people lying in the ruins. Xiao AI activated Observer's vision. Ding Ming noticed that the green that representing Nightmare and the others seemed to be inside a shuttle car. The shuttle car was speeding in the direction of the Southern District's Entrance 3, and it didn't encounter any obstacles along the way. He might be able to transform into Rinjan and the others. The mercenaries along the way might not stop him, Little Rascal analyzed. She guessed correctly. At the entrance to the Southern District's Entrance 3, the thick alloy steel plate slowly parted to the sides, and a small shuttle car slowly floated out of the passage. Mao Zi was still piloting Herak's armor at the moment, guarding the entrance with great dedication. In the past few days, he also knew that Ding Ming's group had snuck in and caused trouble inside. Not only did they take control of the core hub, but they also shut down all the entrances and exits. But with the return of the main force and the entrance reopened, Mao Zi breathed a sigh of relief. He hadn't received any orders from Chang Wei during this time. Chang Wei hadn't sent any orders, so he presumably didn't have any intention of blaming him. On the contrary, he was still very worried about Four Eyes. Four Eyes had been missing for several days, and his wristband couldn't be connected. Who knew what he was doing? Now that he saw a shuttle car drive out from inside, Mao Zi immediately perked up and raised his hand in salute. This was no other car, but Rinjan's. Sure enough, after the door opened, the dignified Rinjan stepped out of the car. Mao Zi's attitude was very proper, and his mantis back was very straight. "Big bro Jean," Rinjan said, "your serial number seems to be 74088, right?" Mao Zi said, "Yes, big bro Jean." Rinjan nodded in satisfaction. "I remember your Huang Long subordinate. You've worked hard." Mao Zi said, "This is what I should do, big bro Jean." Mao Zi found it a little strange that such a big shot like Rin Zhan would actually get out of the car and greet him personally. This wasn't quite the usual. Of course, he didn't know that King of Nightmares was also bracing himself to take a risk. There were still 3 people in the shuttle, not to mention Marshall and Yin Jie. Even if he and Dai teamed up, they would still be no match for this warframe. Therefore, he had to trick the pilot inside the warframe into coming out. The inspiration for this trick came from the conversation between Ding Ming and Chang Wei when Ding Ming disguised himself as Four Eyes and sneaked into the central building. Chang Wei: "Last week, Old Long seemed to have handed you 2 brothers a pack of cigarettes." Ding Ming: "Old Red Plum cigarettes." At this moment, King of Nightmares sighed earnestly. Old Huang was killed by that Ding guy. It must have been hard on you. Come, brother, I have a pack of Old Red Plum cigarettes. Take it. Consider it a reward for your hard work. F***CK. Hearing the 2 words Hong Mei, Mao Zi's eyes suddenly lit up. He didn't even think about it, and quickly closed the system. He opened the side door and jumped down. He rubbed his hands and walked forward happily. "Thank you, Brother Jean. Thank you, Brother Jean. Thank you so much." King of Nightmares also looked at him with a smile. The poison in his cuffs was ready and could be sprayed out at any time. However, at this critical moment, there was a whoosh, whoosh, whoosh sound in the passage behind the door. Apparently, another aircraft had come out. Not good. King of Nightmares' face sank. Why is there still someone chasing after me? Have I been exposed? That's impossible. I also took the secret passage. A small engineering vehicle came out of the passage. Before King of Nightmares and Mao Zi could say anything, a naked person jumped out of the vehicle and cursed at Mao Zi. "Mother of Asterisker, you still have the mood to play here? Something big has happened down there." Mao Zi was surprised and delighted. "Mother of Asterisker, where have you been all this time, Four Eyes?" Mother of Asterisker almost died. Four Eyes was quite annoyed. Mao Zi's eyes widened. "F***CK. How did you end up like this? Where's your hair down there? It's burnt." Four Eyes was furious. "Mother of Asterisker, hurry up and get me something to wear." "Mother of Asterisker, I told you to get me something to wear, but you gave me a knife? Are your ears bad? Didn't you hear me clearly?" Mao Zi's eyelids drooped as he handed over the knife and said helplessly, "It's not burnt, it's burnt. Cut it, it's burnt like that. It's unsightly." "Mother of Asterisker." Four Eyes kicked the military knife away. Just as he was about to step forward to give Harry a good beating, he suddenly realized that King of Nightmares was standing beside him. He was stunned. "You, Brother Jean." "No, you're not Brother Jean. Brother Jean was just thrown away by Ding Ming. I saw it with my own eyes." King of Nightmares was too lazy to talk nonsense and simply transformed. After a burst of purple smoke, he transformed back into Lu Fei's image. Four Eyes and Mao Zi shot up as if they had been shot by an arrow, exclaiming in unison, "Oh my God, a ghost!" "Stop!" King of Nightmares shouted at the 2. Mao Zi looked very confused. "What?" King of Nightmares said coldly. "If you don't want to die, then obediently enter the shuttle ladder." His consideration was careful enough. After escaping to this place, the shuttle car certainly couldn't be used anymore, because if they returned to the ground, it would be easy for the spaceships in the sky to locate them. Secondly, since the main force had appeared below, it proved that Chung Rifeng had also landed in Meteor City. If they went up so rashly, they were afraid of traps. It was better to let these 2 scapegoats open the way. Who knew that Four Eyes would be overjoyed? "Just in time, we can slip away." Mao Zi was stunned. "Slip away?" Four Eyes clapped fiercely. "Just in time. I don't want to do this anymore. F***CK. These bastards even beat up their own people. Look, my hair has been burnt by them. Oh no, it's burnt. What's the point of being a mercenary? The people below are almost all dead. We might as well take this opportunity to slip away. If we don't slip away, we'll probably be killed by that Ding guy." Mao Zi's eyes widened. "They're all dead?" Four Eyes said, "Nonsense. Almost all of them were killed by that Ding Ming. Many of them were burned to death." F***CK. Mao Zi's face turned pale, and he pulled Four Eyes over. Then what are we waiting for? Run, go, 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 go. These two guys didn't even need King of Nightmares to threaten them. Muse supported Four Eyes as they ran to the door of the shuttle. King of Nightmares looked at the window. Misty, let's follow. Chapter 188. It was nighttime on the western outskirts of Celestial Ring. Not only was the darkness man-made, but it was also created on purpose. Long before the reinforcements of the Sky Wolf army arrived, King of Nightmares had already messed with the main system. Not only did he weaken the power supply to the ground, but he also set the ground environment to primary adverse. Now, the ground would experience darkness for 240 hours. The temperature would drop to 0 degrees Celsius. The wind would be level 6, and the oxygen level would be 10%. An ordinary person would feel cold, short of breath, and have difficulty walking in this environment. After all, most of the mercenaries in the Sky Wolf army were ordinary people. King of Nightmares did this because he wanted to take advantage of the darkness and take advantage of the situation. Although the commander was an ordinary person, his physical fitness had always been good. He could barely walk while carrying Yin Jia. On the other hand, the four-eyed man was unlucky. He didn't meet anyone along the way, so naturally, he didn't have any clothes to wear. Even though he was a primary warrior, it was still unbearably cold to walk in this level 6 wind. The night sea breeze was like a knife cutting through flesh. Dai, E, and the others were all wearing thick mercenary uniforms. Only the four-eyed man was leading the way naked. However, it was not hard to imagine that this group of people couldn't move quickly. After all, the commander had to walk and rest. Harry, take off your clothes and give them to me. I'm cold. The four-eyed man shrunk his neck. Harry pulled the zipper of his uniform almost to his chin. I'm cold too. Do you think you're the only one? F*CKU. I'm not wearing any clothes. Are you blind? The four-eyed man was furious. Harry exhaled a white breath and rubbed his hands. Actually, it's better not to wear clothes in this weather. The four-eyed man glared at him. What kind of logic is that? Harry smiled mysteriously. Do you know what I want to do now? The four-eyed man rolled his eyes. Pee, poop, pretend to be asleep, and pretend to be drunk. Do you know anything else other than these four? Harry chuckled. Actually, I want to pee right now. The four-eyed man said, F*CKU, it's so cold. Harry smiled, even more mysteriously. That's right. Haven't you noticed? I want to pee with my clothes on, but you don't want to pee with nothing on. Why is that? Four Eyes was stunned. That seemed to be the case. He asked curiously why. Muse laughed and said, because it's cold, your lower body is frozen, so you naturally don't want to pee. But once your body warms up, your blood circulation speeds up and you want to pee. Now that there's a woman behind you, it's not very elegant to pee in front of you. Four Eyes, I'm also thinking for you and don't want to ruin your image. You let me pee while I'm warm, but you don't need to pee. Look at how loyal we brothers are. The four-eyed man lowered his head and pondered. At what this brat said made a bit of sense. When the weather was cold, people wouldn't want to pee. Wait a minute, there seems to be something wrong. When he looked up again, the Russian had already slipped away without a trace. The four-eyed man was so angry that he started cursing. Mother F***, leave some clothes for me before you leave. What the F***ck are you loyal to? Mousy's escape was not entirely because he needed to pee, but because he had already discovered the hiding spot of the spaceship. In a stone forest on the beach, between a few ugly giant rocks, a brown blazing shark spaceship was quietly parked there. To be honest, this spaceship was even more dilapidated than Sleeman's blazing shark. They were both modified goods, and Sleeman's spaceship had at least a few ion drives added to it. However, Nightmare's blazing shark, if it could be described, was like a pair of worn-out pants that had been patched up quite a bit. Some parts of the outer steel plate were rusted, and the rust was actually dark green. However, it was precisely because of this degree of tattered state and the similarity of the surrounding environment that as long as the engine was not activated, it would be extremely difficult for Meteor City's reconnaissance radar to discover it. This was also the last card that Nightmare had left for himself. If he really couldn't get any benefits and was at the end of his rope, then he would just fly the ship and leave. Four Eyes walked up and was dumbfounded. F***, Is this a spaceship or a fishing boat? He looked like he was about to reach out and touch the dark green moss, but he was quickly stopped by Nightmare, who had followed behind him. Don't touch it, it's poisonous. Four Eyes was so scared that he quickly retreated. Mousy did not believe him. Really? Nightmare said, look at the ground. The two of them lowered their heads and took a closer look. On the sand around the spaceship, there was a messy pile of fish corpses. There were also many seagulls' corpses. However, the smell they emitted wasn't the smell of fish, but rather the faint fragrance of daffodils. The two were not stupid. They immediately realized that the dark green moss on the outer steel plate of the spaceship was indeed highly toxic. These small fish had all died from the poison, and the seagulls that had flown over to eat the fish had also been poisoned to death. Nightmare walked forward and threw a small crystal bottle to Four Eyes. Eat the antidote inside. You two are warriors, but you'll still be poisoned if you stay here for too long. Four Eyes and Mousy were so scared that their faces turned pale. The two immediately opened the small bottle and fought to swallow the pills. The marshal had also caught up. He looked at the blazing shark and said quietly, I didn't expect to see the legendary venomous ghost ship here. Nightmare glanced at him. You're not much of a person, but you have good taste. Venomous ghost ship? He was a little curious. This term was very refreshing to her. She stayed in the Federation all year round, so she naturally did not know about these strange things in outer space. With the technological development of the Holy Grail Federation, there was no need for a venomous ghost ship, so the citizens of the Federation had no concept of this kind of ship at all. Take this ship as an example. On the surface, it looked like a very ordinary blazing shark, but in fact it was not. Its outer alloy layer had been tempered with poison. On some planets, abnormally powerful poisonous plants grew. Ordinary spaceships could not fly in at all. Those powerful poisons could not only corrode steel plates, but also produce terrifying effects such as devouring, parasitism, and reproduction. Even the powerful Songqing spaceships did not dare to test the poisons easily. However, the modified venomous ghost ship did not have to worry about this problem. Of course, with the endless defensive means of the large starships of the Holy Grail Federation, there was naturally no need to worry. The venomous ghost ship also had an advantage. The crystal source in its power furnace could also be fused with poison, because poison was also a kind of energy. Poison could also provide kinetic energy, but how to fuse the two was not something that ordinary people could research. In fact, the spaceships of the Devouring World also used this principle, but most of the spaceships in the Devouring World were not made of alloy. Therefore, the venomous ghost ship was also a unique existence in outer space. It could often sneak through the poisonous planets full of mutated creatures. It could come and go freely in places where large starships, even Songqing spaceships, could not go. In addition, it was often elusive. Over time, the name of the venomous ghost ship was spread. Hearing this explanation, Dai Yi's eyes were opened. The marshal sighed. It is said that in the war between the Federation and the Devouring World many years ago, this kind of spaceship made a great contribution. The strange thing is that very few people know about it. After that, it basically disappeared. I only saw it once 8 years ago. The King of Nightmares snorted. You know, quite a lot. As he spoke, he pressed his hand on the external steel plate. An extremely thin red light shot out from the needle above the slot, as if it was scanning his iris. After the authentication was completed, the dark green moss on the surface of the blazing shark slowly disappeared, revealing the original grayish-black color of the spaceship. At this time, the giant steel plate on the blazing shark's side wing slowly lowered, finally revealing the entrance of the connecting cabin. The King of Nightmares sighed softly. Let's wait until Mr. Ting meets up before we board the ship. He was now curious about the marshal. Commander Hu, Cousin Ding Ming, said that he used to be a laborer under you and almost died in your hands. Is that true? Her question really made the marshal nervous, but he could only sigh honestly. Yes, it's my fault for being greedy. He really had to answer honestly. Putting aside Dai Yi's identity, if he wanted to leave Meteor City alive, his only hope was Ding Ming. He was already very lucky that Ding Ming did not kill him before. Although Ding Ming didn't do it before, it didn't mean that Ding Ming would let him go. The grudges of Black Gold Base couldn't be settled with just a few words. Little Four was killed by the Surprise Attack Army, and the 8th Regiment of the Surprise Attack Army also died because of Ding Ming. Half a year ago, the Marshal wanted nothing more than to tear Ding Ming into pieces. But now, if he could be forgiven if he knelt down and kowtowed to Ding Ming, he would kneel down without hesitation. This was not because he was afraid of death, but because he knew a terrible fact. Ding Ming was no longer someone that he dared to mess with. The entire Raider Regiment did not dare to mess with him, and it was very likely that the Celestial Wolf Regiment was no longer the same. The Marshal saw it with his own eyes. Rin Zhan, Rin Tu, and Jiao Mao were all defeated by Ding Ming in half a minute. Which regiment would dare to offend such a person? Die? He stared at the Marshal. You want to kill him because of money? The Marshal did not dare to say the words K-virus, even if he was beaten to death. He knew how deadly that thing was. If he wanted to live, some things could only rot in his stomach for the rest of his life. He could not even think about it, so he could only let out a long sigh. If you want my life now, I have nothing to say. I wanted to touch him in the past, but I didn't expect that he would save me today. If he really wants to kill me, it's only right. Next to him, King of Nightmares sneered disdainfully. Yes, some people are alive, but they're already dead. Some people are dead, but they should have died long ago. You're acting all noble. You can fool young girls, but don't play tricks in front of me. The Marshal frowned and said, What do you mean? What do I mean? King of Nightmares was even more disdainful. He took 2 steps forward and stretched out his hand in front of the Marshal. Stop pretending. Take it out. Otherwise, Mr. Ting won't bother to kill you. I'm willing to do it for him. I believe he won't blame me for killing a thief. The Marshal was silent, and his expression seemed to be hesitating. Seeing the Marshal's fearless expression, King of Nightmares suddenly became a little angry. He said sternly, When it comes to stealing, I'm your boss. If you don't believe me, I'll tell you right away. When it comes to stealing, I'm your ancestor. When it comes to stealing, you won't have any temper at all. Do you want me to rob you myself? The Marshal curled his lips. Even if he was very unwilling, he could not do anything. It might have been better if he was threatened by Ding Ming, but everyone knew the consequences of being threatened by King of Nightmares. That was to make sure that there were no consequences to speak of. You would not be a human, nor a ghost, and you would not be able to die even if you wanted to. The Marshal took off his backpack and reluctantly handed it to King of Nightmares. How did you know? King of Nightmares rolled his eyes at him. You're a retard. Do you think you're lucky to have survived until now? If I didn't let you into the energy warehouse, would you have been able to steal these things? The Marshal sighed and did not answer. However, the expression on his face was as if he had been cut off dozens of pounds of flesh. Chapter 189. The backpack was naturally the Sky Wolf Army's unique long, dazzling gold backpack. Nightmare only opened it a sliver before a golden light shone on his face. He couldn't help but reveal a cold smile. Captain Hu, your appetite is quite big. The commander felt another wave of pain. While Ding Ming was cultivating, he had been plundering the 2nd floor of the Sky Wolf Army's warehouse. His plundering was quite skillful. He didn't touch anything like antiques or paintings. Instead, he focused on diamond necklaces, earrings, and pendants. After all, he had been in the Black Gold Army for many years. He wasn't very good in other aspects, but he could be considered an authority in this area. His thinking was also very good. Stealing too much was like eating too much. Sooner or later, he would spit it all out. If he only took a portion, then he could push the blame on Ding Ming. However, Nightmare was a famous thief. He was also an authority in this area. With just a glance, he could tell that the commander had stolen quite a bit. Although it wasn't a lot, each item was worth a lot. Nightmare laughed again. Actually, it's safer to leave this bag with me. If you keep it by yourself, you'll just be inviting trouble. The commander naturally understood this principle. With such a large amount of wealth of unknown origin, no matter who lost it, they wouldn't let it go easily. Sooner or later, they would find out that he was the culprit. You also know that you're inviting trouble. Do you still have the guts to steal it? This unfamiliar voice seemed to float out from the sea breeze. In this dark stone forest, it sounded particularly frightening. Who is it? Nightmare was shocked. He wasn't the only one shocked. Four Eyes, and Harry were all shocked. This definitely wasn't Ding Meng's voice. They were all Origin Energy warriors, but they couldn't sense that there was someone nearby. This showed that the newcomer's strength was not low. If it was an enemy, then it was likely that things were not looking good for them. A black shadow slowly walked out from behind a huge rock. He said mockingly, "I told you 3 days ago that if you have the guts to steal from us, you should prepare to die. But since you brought Missy in here, I'll give you some face. You can choose how you want to die. I promise to give you a quick death." Before King of Nightmares could speak, Four-Eyed and Harry's faces turned deathly pale. Brother Feng. The person who came was none other than the vice commander of the Sky Wolf Army, Cheng Rifeng, who was second only to Yin Fengwei. Cheng Rifeng's attire was very simple. He wore a pair of long boots, a pair of straight black military trousers, and a simple sports vest on his upper body. However, the muscles that were exposed on the outside were abnormally well developed. Coupled with his face that was filled with hostility, it made people feel that he was definitely a powerful character at first glance. The reason was very simple. Sometimes, when you could sense the other party's aura, you could also roughly estimate the other party's strength. Not being able to sense any movement was the most frightening thing. At the very least, you could guess that the other party could control their aura and fluctuations as they pleased. Cheng Rifeng glanced at Four-Eyed and Harry, and the smile on his face became even wider. Not bad. You two actually dared to be King of Nightmare's lackeys and traitors. We're innocent, Brother Feng. We didn't. Four-Eyed wanted to cry. He was indeed wronged. From the beginning of the matter until now, he had done almost nothing. In the end, he had inexplicably become a traitor. Cheng Rifeng coldly harumphed. After I've dealt with them, I'll deal with you two dogs. King of Nightmares and Dai secretly circulated their origin energy, preparing to make their move at a moment's notice. Unexpectedly, Cheng Rifeng didn't take them seriously at all. Instead, he turned to the commander and laughed. Brother Hu, I also admire you. Even though the commander didn't have much strength, his self-control was still very good. At the very least, he managed to maintain a calm appearance. Commander Cheng, do you have any good ideas? Cheng Rifeng stared at him for a moment before laughing. I'll give you some face. After all, you were the one who carried Mission up here. It wasn't easy to avoid the eyes and ears of so many people along the way. King of Nightmare's heart sank. Did he finally know where he had gone wrong? Logically speaking, as soon as the Celestial Wolf Army's reinforcements arrived, the first thing they would do would be to dive into the ground. This was human nature, after all, because the command center was in danger. However, Cheng Rifeng was too lazy to go down because he knew that Starlink couldn't fly out of the Vermilion Bird system. Ding Meng's group would return to the surface sooner or later, and there had to be a way out for them somewhere on the surface. He didn't need to go down to the sea to catch fish. He could just wait here for them to come. Actually, Cheng Rifeng didn't dare to get too close to the Blazing Shark spaceship. He was someone with good judgment, and he could tell that this was a venomous Spectre spaceship. He just needed King of Nightmares to return here and turn off the venomous Spectre spaceship. It was still the same principle. People who could truly not underestimate their enemy at all basically didn't exist, and King of Nightmares was no exception. After figuring this out, King of Nightmares didn't waste any time. His entire body disappeared with a whoosh. He had to strike first to gain the upper hand. This time, he didn't just use transit steps. Instead, he used transient steps in conjunction with Phantom of the Phantom. In the blink of an eye, he flashed to Cheng Rifeng's flank, and the poison claws hidden in his sleeves shot out like lightning. Ding! The claws hit Cheng Rifeng's face, but the sound was like weapons clashing. Upon closer inspection, the claws were clearly on the other party's face, but no blood flowed out. Instead, it was as if the claws had hit an iron wall. Cheng Rifeng wasn't hurt at all. This, King of Nightmares, was dumbfounded. He had long heard that Yin Fengwei and Cheng Rifeng of the Sky Wolf Corps weren't easy to deal with. Now, he finally understood why there was such a saying. It was because this Chung Rifeng was an origin ability user of the body hardening system. He walked the path of strengthening and resisting attacks. Chu Xiaoqing's body tempering system was considered a branch of this system. It focused on training the body's coordination, tolerance, and flexibility. Chung Rifeng obviously had hardened his skin, and this claw couldn't hurt him. That proved that he had advanced to the level of tempered skin. Sure enough, the corner of Chung Rifeng's mouth revealed a trace of a sneer. The muscles on his face trembled slightly. He tilted his head and fiercely swung his claws. King of Nightmare's steel claws immediately flew out, and he fell on the steel plate of the spaceship, making a muffled sound. Seeing that this mercenary leader was so fierce, Dai didn't stay idle. She quickly rushed up and began a series of punches and kicks. Compared to the previous fight with Yin Jie, Dai obviously went all out this time. When the 7-star fist attacked, not only did it set off waves of heat, but these waves of heat also faintly formed streams of energy that filled the afterimages of her punches and kicks. From afar, it looked like streams of water were crashing against each other. However, Chung Rifeng didn't even move. He just stood there and let her punch and kick him. Don't look at the banging sounds all over his body. The sounds were as dense as firecrackers, but Chung Rifeng basically didn't move at all. His expression was as if he was watching a child jumping around. His gaze was quite contemptuous. When Dai finished the 7-star fist, Chung Rifeng sneered and said, "Miss Dai, our Skywolf Corps has always been very polite to your Dai family. Even when your brothers came to Meteor City, they weren't as rude as you. Do you really want to force me to attack you?" Dai was shocked and took a few steps back. The strength of this Chung Rifeng in front of her was not something she could shake. Just as Ding Ming had thought before, most of the people in these outer space factions might not be much, but every corps would definitely have 1 or 2 experts who specialized in holding down the fort. Otherwise, these factions wouldn't have been able to survive. Chung Rifeng was undoubtedly one of the people holding down the fort in the Skywolf Corps. Of course, there would always be people who didn't believe this. Nightmare, who was beside the spaceship, bounced up again and threw out a palm strike. He didn't expect this palm strike to hurt Chung Rifeng. Instead, a large amount of red high-grade source-devouring agent sprayed out from under his sleeve. Chung Rifeng clearly knew how powerful the poison was. He steadily retreated out of the range of the poison mist. Nightmare rolled on the ground and used the cover of the poison mist to grab Chung Rifeng's crotch with his left hand. This action was rather unsightly, but the momentum was strange. He was still aiming for a vital spot. Chung Rifeng didn't take him seriously at first, but just as his claw was about to grab him, Nightmare suddenly changed his hand into a palm, and a purple object popped out from his wrist. It didn't look like a metal weapon, but something similar to a crescent-shaped bone spike. This bone spike seemed to be releasing purplish-black dust all over. It was definitely an extremely poisonous weapon. Chung Rifeng was shocked. He quickly used his right wrist to cut downwards. With a ding, the bone spike was knocked away. Nightmare was also shocked because a circle of white energy had appeared on Chung Rifeng's arm. This wasn't rare. It was obviously the release of source energy, but what was rare was that the released source energy formed a square energy shield on his arm. In the middle of the shield, there was a faint mirror image of a wolf's head. This was the symbol of the Skywolf Corps. The bone spike that should have been able to pierce through tempered skin was actually blocked by this shield. While Nightmare was still in a daze, there seemed to be another flash of light next to him. Chung Rifeng once again raised a shield in front of his chest to protect himself. He saw a thin beam of light arrive in the blink of an eye and hit the shield with a sizzling sound. It seemed to be burning the shield. The shield was like a flashlight, rapidly flashing with light. The entire beach was illuminated as if it was daytime. Turning his head to look again, he saw the marshal in the distance holding a large and strangely shaped energy pistol. The beam of light had been shot out from the metal ball at the muzzle of the gun. This kind of energy pistol wasn't an ordinary one. It was a laser gun that had been modified. It was filled with special energy and could cause great damage to origin ability users. However, this gun had a problem. Like the standard photoelectric rifle, it needed time to gather energy. This was also the Marshal's trump card. He wouldn't use it unless it was absolutely necessary. His purpose of coming to the Flying Star City had been exposed. If the King of Nightmares were to die, his fate would be even more miserable. He knew what to do. Besides, he had chosen a very good opportunity to sneak in when the two were fighting fiercely. However, Chung Rifeng's reaction was astonishing. In the midst of a fierce battle, he was still able to block his shot. Moreover, whether a weapon was powerful or not still depended on who was using it. Almost at the same time, the Marshal fired. Chung Rifeng stomped on the ground with his left foot. The powerful Qi Jin not only knocked over the King of Nightmares, but also shook a large piece of rock on the ground. Then, Chung Rifeng swept his right leg, and a palm-sized rock flew out, hitting the Marshal's wrist, elbow, and shoulder at the same time. Pada! The pistol fell to the ground, and the beam of light disappeared. Chapter 190. The deadly darkness returned to the beach, and this time, it was very likely that it would really kill them. The Marshal fell to the ground. His wrist, elbow, and shoulder were all broken. He couldn't lift his right arm at all. The pistol was lying on the sand in front of him, close at hand, but he couldn't reach out to pick it up. In fact, it didn't matter whether he picked it up or not, because Chung Rifeng had slowly walked over and kicked the pistol away. Aha, Commander Hu, your brain is good, but unfortunately, you don't have the corresponding ability. Don't worry, I won't kill you. I'll inform Boss Ching of your raiding regiment to come over and pay the ransom. He grinned and turned to look at Mousie. You two bastards, why don't you come over and help? Mousie had long been frightened by Chung Rifeng's exaggerated defense system. He said in a trembling voice, Brother Feng, help. Help with what? Chung Rifeng said sternly, Didn't you see Miss Yin? Why don't you carry her back? Yin Jie had been in a coma, lying on the ground unconscious. At this moment, the incubus was seriously injured. He gritted his teeth and supported himself with one hand on the ground. Chung Rifeng didn't ask him for the antidote because he knew he didn't have the guts to poison Yin Jie. So, it didn't matter whether he wanted the antidote or not. Yin Jie would wake up on her own sooner or later. However, he had calculated everything, but he didn't expect the people on his side to be scared stiff. Mousie hid far away and spread his hands. Brother Feng, why didn't you say so earlier? Why didn't you say so earlier? Huh? Chung Rifeng looked at him and his face darkened. Unfortunately, his expression, which he thought was very dignified, had no deterrent effect on people like Mousie who were used to being naughty. Mousie still stood on the sand and spread his hands. Why didn't you say so earlier? Why didn't you say so earlier? Say it earlier. Yes, say it earlier. You. Chung Rifeng was really angry. He was too lazy to argue with these soldiers, so he pointed at the four-eyed man. You, come here. Carry Missy into the villa. The four-eyed man jumped up in fright. Sorry, Brother Feng, what did you just say? My ears are bad. I didn't hear it clearly. Chung Rifeng was furious. You two Motherf Asterisk King brats, get over here and betray Miss Yin. Motherf Asterisk her, you'll suffer when you get back. This time, Four-Eyed heard it clearly, but his face was so bitter that it couldn't be any more bitter. He also imitated Mousie and spread out his hands. Brother Feng, I can't. Chung Rifeng roared. You have hands and feet. If you can't, who can? Do you want me to carry it on my back? That's not what I meant. The four-eyed man covered his private parts with both hands and said pitifully, Brother Feng, you see, I think it's better for me to wear some clothes and carry Miss Yin. Previously, I was stripped naked by Ding Ming and tied up with Miss Yin. I was even beaten up by Brother Zhan. If this happens again, I don't know what Boss Yin will think. Chung Rifeng was speechless for a moment. This was what it meant to be a pig-like teammate. In any case, they could find any excuse for you. He really didn't want to waste any more time in this place. So he turned to look at Dai Yi and said with a sinister smile, Then it seems that I can only let young Miss Dai do it for me. Dai Yi stood where she was, flicked her hair, and snorted disdainfully. In your dreams. Chung Rifeng immediately found that something was wrong. Dai Yi hid her left hand behind her back, and there seemed to be a slight green light flashing behind her. Obviously, her wrist device had been turned on and was sending out the location. Doing so would undoubtedly let the large force find this position, but it would also let Ding Meng know the specific coordinates. It doesn't matter. Cheng Rifeng raised his head and took a deep breath. It's good that he's here. I also want to meet this guy, surnamed Ding. He can kill Xiangzi. I think he's a big shot. Dai, he forced herself to calm down and said coldly, "If cousin Ding Meng comes here, you'll kneel down and beg for mercy." Even she didn't have the confidence to say this. She had seen those masters, and she could see that Cheng Rifeng in front of her was definitely beyond the level of a warrior. Otherwise, with the strength of an advanced nightmare warrior, he couldn't be shocked by Cheng Rifeng like this. Cheng Rifeng didn't answer her. He had already sensed that an extremely powerful wave was coming along the beach. Even though the sea breeze was strong, he could still clearly feel it. In fact, it was easy to understand. Ding Meng couldn't stop circulating his origin energy. There were pursuers all along the way, and there might be a group of people following behind him. Not long after, Dai, he also noticed it. Her expression changed because there was a rumbling sound in the distance, and the ground seemed to be trembling slightly. There was no doubt that it was the pursuers. She was about to circulate her origin energy again when Cheng Rifeng, who was in the middle of the open space, sneered. Good timing. A black shadow suddenly jumped from the top of the blazing shark spaceship and flew toward Cheng Rifeng like a slippery fish. Its speed was comparable to the sea breeze. Ding Meng had finally arrived. Cheng Rifeng did indeed look down on Ding Meng. Previously, the space station had provided him with information that Dai Yi's attendant was at most in his 20s. At this age, even if he was a genius of the Federation, he would at most be at the level of an advanced warrior. If he really was a genius, why would he be Dai Yi's attendant? However, Cheng Rifeng's arrogance quickly changed when he saw Ding Meng flying over. Ding Meng still did the classic action of a fish leaping over the dragon gate and a backhand chop, but this was not the case in Cheng Rifeng's eyes. Originally, he had sensed that the powerful wave was getting closer and closer. When it flew over, the wave suddenly increased by a large margin, almost to the point where he couldn't open his eyes. Hua hua. Cheng Rifeng quickly increased his origin energy. This time, he used the origin steel shield on both his arms, and both shields protected his flanks at the same time. Ding! The chop of the hand chop on the shield also made a sharp sound, but the collision of the two's origin energy caused a wave of air to rise with a bang, causing everyone's faces to feel a faint pain. The entire space was filled with sand and stones. Cheng Rifeng's style was different from all of Ding Meng's previous opponents. Although the origin steel shield had a spiderweb of cracks from the chop of the hand chop, Cheng Rifeng endured the tremendous force and twisted his arms, clamping down on his opponent's wrist and pulling him down. Then, he used his knee to fiercely kick upwards. It had to be said that he, as an origin energy user with a body of steel, could actually use such ingenious fighting techniques. He must be someone who had experienced hundreds of battles. Of course, Ding Meng wouldn't let him hit him like this. As soon as his opponent hit him, he used his left palm to support his knee and leaned against his body. He spun in the air and swept his right leg over. This was the 9 forms of swallow attack scissor kick that he had secretly learned from Chu Shaoqing at the Qingzi Dojo. The speed wasn't fast, but it was very consistent. It was almost impossible to dodge. There was a muffled thump sound. Cheng Rifeng's shoulder was kicked. His whole body was pushed back 4 or 5 steps before he could steady himself. His face was full of shock. Good kid. If Chong Wei fell to your hands, he wouldn't have been wronged at all. Cheng Rifeng wasn't a war elder yet, but he was much stronger than an advanced warrior. Strictly speaking, he was at the stage where he had the strength to become a war elder. Moreover, he had been stuck at this stage for many years without being able to advance. This kind of advanced warrior's foundation was very deep. Moreover, he was a body of steel, but he had actually been pushed back by Ding Meng with a casual kick. Was this a young man in his 20s? But looking at Ding Meng's figure and face, Cheng Rifeng felt like he should dig out his own eyes if he didn't King look young. While he was still in shock, Ding Meng rolled on the ground and ran far away. As he ran, he shouted, "Hurry up and drive the boat." There are too many people behind us. These words were said to the Nightmare Lord. The Nightmare Lord felt like he had just woken up from a dream. Only then did he realize that the ground was shaking more and more violently, and the various rumbling sounds behind them were becoming clearer and clearer. The pursuers were about to catch up. If they didn't start the boat now, then they really wouldn't be able to escape. The Nightmare Lord staggered towards the entrance of the connecting cabin. Chung Rifeng couldn't stop him even if he wanted to. Ding Meng was too fast. He reached out and grabbed Yin Jie's belt, lifted her up, and threw her behind him. Catch! Dai Yi, who was running, had a tacit understanding with him. He opened his arms and grabbed Yin Jie as he ran towards the entrance. Whether or not they could really leave depended on whether they could bring Yin Jie along as a shield. You want to run? Chung Rifeng didn't care about Dai Yi. He rushed forward, raised his two shields, and smashed down on Ding Meng's head. Bang! Two powerful forces collided again. The sand and stones in the open space were so dazzling that it was impossible to open one's eyes. Ding Meng knelt on one knee and raised his palms to block the opponent's origin steel shield. Little Rascal suddenly warned, "Be careful, he's trained in a martial technique that accumulates energy." Ding Meng could already feel that Chung Rifeng's two shields weren't just for show. The force behind the smash was already very strong, but now that they were in a deadlock, the origin energy fluctuations on the shields were growing stronger and stronger. It was obvious that they were constantly being injected with energy. It was like two mountains were pressing down on their heads. This was the kind of feeling one usually felt when cultivating. You couldn't let go, because if you let go, the opponent would smash down on you like a mountain. Even if you didn't die, you would lose a layer of skin. Of course, Ding Meng would always advance instead of retreat when facing this kind of pressure. The origin energy in his body increased again, and all of it gathered in his palms. The shields were actually slowly pushed upwards. Ding Meng also slowly stood up. The two of them seemed to be pushing against each other with the shields between them. At this moment, Chung Rifeng was truly shocked. This kid's explosive power was simply inconceivable. He was actually able to increase his origin energy under this kind of pressure. I'll let you experience the true power of the toughness system. With a whoosh, multiple source steel shields appeared all over Chung Rifeng's body. They quickly merged with the two shields on his arms and transformed into a white mirror image of a wolf's head that wrapped around him. This was practically a counterfeit version of Ding Meng's Diamond Star spell. The wolf's mouth opened as if it were roaring. Ding Meng's palms were firmly pressed against its upper and lower jaws. It gave off the feeling that if he relaxed even a little, the wolf's head would swallow him whole. "Kid, you're not bad." Chung Rifeng revealed a smile. "You've forced me to get serious. You're already pretty good." It was still too early for him to be proud, because all of his attention was on Ding Meng. He completely ignored what was happening behind him. The commander, who was originally lying on the ground and groaning, suddenly flew into the air as if he was being supported by an invisible hand. Then his entire body swayed as he flew toward the exit of the connecting cabin. This was Ding Meng secretly releasing his telekinesis to carry the commander away while they were fighting. In Ding Meng's plan, the commander was the most important part. This person definitely couldn't die. At this moment, the Blazing Shark spaceship finally emitted a bright light. It was obvious that the engine had been activated. All the light sources had been activated. The system's voice rang out. "Attention all members, attention all members. The spaceship is about to lift off. Liftoff countdown, 60 seconds, 59 seconds, 58 seconds, 57 seconds." Chapter 191. In the control hall of the Blazing Shark spaceship, the main console had been turned on, and the interstellar map had been brought up. The Marshal stumbled in. His right arm was crippled, and he definitely could not operate on the screen. "Tell me the location. Tell me the coordinates. I'll set the route." The King of Nightmares shouted anxiously. The Marshal quickly said, "Planet Chiming 28, Route 41 ATG 5. Coordinates 6150, 3860. Jifan's main route, Route 41, ATG 10026, Coordinates 5534, 2KT4439. As he reported the numbers, the King of Nightmare's fingers quickly tapped on the screen. The light spots on the map made a ding-ding-ding sound, and one by one, they quickly turned green and connected into a complicated polygonal line. Then, the King of Nightmares did not hesitate to press the start button on the panel. Chi, 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 chi. The chassis of the blazing shark spaceship spewed out a spectacular blue crystal flame, one after another. The system's voice said, 40 seconds to liftoff. Ding Meng, who was on the open ground, finally activated the golden diamond mirror image. There was nothing she could do about it. The enemies on the beach were already visible to the naked eye. Large groups of mercenaries swarmed around small chariots and shuttles, forming a black mass. 5 Herat Predator armors were waving their mechanical arms and crawling towards them with bared teeth and claws. Before they arrived, their attacks had already begun. Countless energy bullets, artillery shells, guided missiles, laser particles, and laser beams were like a large, colorful net that enveloped them in the blink of an eye. There was no way to dodge it all. Boom! The sound of the explosion was like a single sound, and it was terrifyingly dense. In Ding Meng's normal vision, the outside world did not exist at all. All around him was a chaotic energy explosion. Only the white wolf head in front of him was still roaring, and it looked like it was going to swallow him whole. Shout AI said, ACT 5570, you can't hold on anymore. If this goes on, the risk factor will be as high as 60%. Quickly find a way to board the ship. Xiao AI had undoubtedly used her calculations as a tool. After Ding Meng killed Rinzhan, he had run all the way here. Along the way, he had encountered countless ant-like enemy units. By now, he had expended a lot of energy. Under normal circumstances, Ding Meng would have no problem dealing with Chang Rifeng. However, now that they were in a stalemate, and he was still increasing his energy, he was at his limit. It was not that Zhan Zun's strength was so weak, but that his 7th origin had just been constructed and had not been strengthened, so it could not display the most perfect effect. He had barely mobilized it once with Rinzhan, and now, if he forced it to be activated again, there was a high chance that his foundation would be damaged, and the subsequent damage would be unimaginable. Ding Meng also understood this principle. He was a little unwilling to use up the silver core stone essence that he had worked so hard to refine. However, the situation was critical now, and he could not be competitive anymore. Finally, the smelting core in his body emitted a strong light, and the whole crown turned into a white mirror. It instantly turned into mist and spread to every part of his body. This was the effect of smelting essence to increase one's origin energy. However, this was not the case in Chang Rifeng's field of vision. The golden diamond mirror image suddenly let out a woo sound, as if it was the mournful cry of a demon from hell. Then, the entire mirror image turned into a large pupil of light. The pupil of light even changed, and, in the blink of an eye, it transformed into a bright white mirror image of a warrior. The warrior reached out and pulled out the sword at his waist, stabbing the wolf head's mouth without hesitation. Not good. Chang Rifeng turned pale with fright. He had never seen this kind of ultimate skill before, but from this strange transformation, he knew that this move was absolutely terrifying. Withdrawing the shield now was tantamount to suicide. He could only instantly increase his origin energy to the limit and force the wolf head forward again. Whether he lived or died depended on this. Boom! An earth-shattering sound rang out. The exact situation of the explosion could no longer be seen clearly in the center of the open space. There was only a circular wave of air that spread out in all directions. At the same time, the ground exploded with pa-pa-pa sounds. The mercenaries in the front row of the Sky Wolf Corps were torn apart, and the shuttle cars were also lifted into the sky. The people in the back row could not get up at all. The explosion's airflow was too strong. It was mixed with rocks and sand that covered the sky as it smashed down. It was like a desert storm, burying a large number of people in an instant. This kind of explosion did not only affect the people and the shuttle, but even the blazing shark spaceship that had just been suspended slightly trembled. Chung Rifeng was sent flying on the spot. He spun a few times in the air before falling heavily to the ground. Pooh! Chung Rifeng spat out a mouthful of black blood. He lay on the sand, stunned, unable to get up. What he could not believe the most was not this exaggerated martial arts technique, but that it had come from a 20-year-old brat. Of course, Ding Meng's condition was not good either. He had been shaken by the explosion of the Origin steel shield and sat on the ground. The color of the seventh Origin had obviously dimmed. Xiao AI's calculation was undoubtedly correct. Forcibly activating, it was overdraft of the future. The system's voice, 30 seconds to liftoff. The blazing shark spaceship had already left the ground and was slowly rising vertically, but the giant steel plate connecting the cabin entrance had not yet been closed. He rushed to the cabin door recklessly. He quickly untied the steel cable on the wall and threw it down. On Chung Rifeng's side, the 5 Herak armors were not affected by the explosion. They glided into the open space. "Brother Feng, are you okay?" The 5 subordinates were obviously very loyal to their duty. The first thing they did was to scan their superior's injuries. "Damn, there's no way you can escape." Chung Rifeng spat out another mouthful of blood and turned his head. "Someone come down and give me the armor." "Miss Yin is still up there," the system's voice. 20 seconds to liftoff. "Ding Meng, hold on tight." He lay on a steel plate at the entrance while desperately pulling on the steel cable. The blazing shark spaceship had already risen to a height of 30 meters. The hull was slowly turning around. The entrance could be left open for now, but after 20 seconds, once the main engine spewed out a crystal flame, the huge acceleration would throw Ding Meng back to the ground. Ugh! Dai's face turned purple. She pushed her origin energy to the limit and pulled on the cable with all her might. In fact, this kind of steel cable was not used to save people. On the other end was a giant alloy hook that was usually used to hook large units. It was reasonable to say that this hook would not be installed at the entrance of the connecting cabin. This blazing shark spaceship's facilities were really too outdated. The King of Nightmares had spent a lot of effort on the poison, and there was almost no technological or mechanical improvement. The system's voice, 15 seconds to liftoff, 14 seconds, 13 seconds, 12 seconds. Ignored the sharp pain in her palms caused by the friction. She could no longer feel the outside world. She only had one last thought left. No matter what, she had to pull Ding Meng up. Very quickly, her usually well-maintained, slender, jade-like hands were dripping with blood. When the system's voice counted down to 9 seconds, Ding Meng's figure finally appeared at the entrance. He jumped in with a flip. The King of Nightmares, who was next to the control panel, decisively pressed the control panel. The steel plate at the entrance slowly retracted upward, and the steel cable and the hook fell to the ground. He was pleasantly surprised. She reached out to help Ding Meng. "Thank goodness I made it in time." Unexpectedly, Ding Meng roared, "Get out of the way." He was still in a daze. Ding Meng did not have time to explain. He rushed forward and pushed her away. The system's voice, 7, 6, 5, 4, just as the giant steel plate was about to completely close with the entrance, another black shadow, spitting out a pale yellow crystal flame, appeared. This black shadow was obviously much larger than a human body. It seemed to be stuck the moment the steel plate closed. However, it forcibly twisted its body, and a burst of strong electric sparks came out of its body. Its body still managed to crawl in. The system's voice, 3, 2, 1, activate. The blazing shark's tail spat out a huge arrow-shaped crystal flame. It shot into the night sky like lightning, leaving behind a long sky-blue tail. However, at this moment, Dai's whole body turned cold. She had seen clearly what the black shadow that crawled in was. It was the Hercules Predator armor of the Celestial Wolf Army. Due to the forced entry, the armor was damaged in many places. The 2 mechanical arms on the left side of the mantis had been crushed by the steel plate. A large part of the mantis shoulder had also collapsed. The internal loudspeaker of the armor was not turned off. Chung Rifeng's voice could be heard clearly. "Mother Kerr, maintenance my ass?" The flight power is so little, and you want me to cut corners? Are you trying to kill me? Let's see how I'll deal with you bastards when I get back. Ding Ming pressed down on Dai Yi's shoulder. Let's go. Let's go to the control room. I'll stop him. The right arm of the armor spun a few times. Xiao, a fiery red laser blade appeared. Chung Rifeng sneered. Kid, you think you can run away this time? I'll take your surname. As soon as he finished speaking, the laser blade slashed down with a schwa sound. Chung Rifeng was stronger than Rinzhan. Even the speed of his blade was much faster. The blade slashed down, leaving behind afterimages. The steel plates in the tunnel were all cut apart. The right arm of the armor had two arms, which were the two laser blades intersecting each other. Furthermore, the way he slashed the blades was to cut back and forth. This method looked laughably simple, but the connecting tunnel was narrow. Ding Ming found it difficult to dodge. With a zhung sound, the longsword was finally unsheathed. Ding Ming didn't use his telekinesis this time. He had used up almost all of his energy, so he could only block with one hand. The laser blade was immediately reflected when it came into contact with the longsword. Chung Rifeng felt that it wasn't the sword itself that had blocked it, but rather the powerful origin energy attached to the sword. He was truly shocked at how Ding Ming had managed to gather so much origin energy. It was actually so deep that he couldn't see the bottom. Ding, 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 ding. The sharp sounds of collision in the tunnel were as dense as rain. Chung Rifeng was quite smart. He attacked as he advanced, using the armor's massive body to press forward. If I can't cut you to death, then I'll just stomp you to death. Ding Ming blocked as he retreated. Just as he was about to leave the connecting tunnel, the two alloy doors of the tunnel suddenly closed with a kacha sound. It was clear that the main control panel had closed the tunnel. Little rascal couldn't help but cry out. What's going on? Why did they close the door? Are they trying to kill Ding Ming on purpose? Chung Rifeng laughed. Ha ha ha, son of a bitch. I didn't expect you to have a stupid teammate. And your stupid teammate is even more stupid. He actually locked you up here. Accept your fate, kid. Chapter 192. Many screens appeared on the main control panel. On the interstellar map, the Blazing Shark spaceship was already very far away from the ring, but many red dots could be seen flying out from the ring, following the green dots that represented their side. It was obvious that the Celestial Wolf Army's spaceships were chasing after them. However, in the star field behind the star ring, a dense swarm of red dots appeared. There were at least 100 spaceships chasing after the Blazing Shark. The Yin Vanguard Army is finally here. Nightmare was very calm. Where are your men? Have they arrived yet? The general tapped on the screen with one hand, and the ion comms was quickly connected. A new screen appeared, and a remote real-time projection was transmitted. A young man appeared, wearing a black mercenary uniform and a large pair of goggles. On his chest was a badge in the shape of a sailboat. This was the insignia of the assault mercenary group. Upon seeing the general, the mercenary immediately raised his hand and saluted. Sir, the general was burning with anxiety. Where are your men? Where are they? The mercenary said, We're on our way. We're very close to the coordinates you've given us. We'll arrive in about 5 minutes. Nightmare stared at the map and said, I see it. It looks like a transport ship. The Grand Marshal turned his head and looked. The map showed the Blazing Shark spaceship's route, and not far away, a huge red that was slowly approaching it. The image of the reconnaissance radar was enlarged, and the red dot's real body became clearer. It was indeed a transport ship. Its main body seemed to be made up of 3 batteries, but the middle and rear of the ship were stabilizers. The stabilizers looked like Meteor City, and 2 rings, one large and one small, were attached to the ship. These were high-power ion engines. Once the starship's firepower was fully activated, the stabilizers would push the starship into a state of extreme speed. This was something that the Celestial Wolf Army's spaceships of all sizes could not catch up to. The transport ship also had a laser energy gathering system and an energy shield booster. Under normal circumstances, it was not afraid of space combat, but when faced with the pursuit of hundreds of spaceships, it was better to run. Everyone knew that many ants could bite an elephant to death, The general could not help but ask, "How long will it take for us to reach the coordinates?" Nightmare's expression was grim. "We won't make it in time. At this rate, Yin Feng's Wasp Stinger Destroyer will catch up to us in 3 hours. Inform your men to enter the Zoisha branch to pick us up. That's the safest way." The marshal immediately turned to the mercenary and said, "Hua, give up on the designated coordinates. Turn and accelerate into the Jifan system. Head toward my route and open up the search and rescue port. I'll fly straight in." Ahua immediately saluted. "Understood, sir." The two of them were nervously communicating with the carrier ship. On the other side of the main control panel, he could not hear them at all. Her mind was completely focused on the connecting cabin. At this moment, Ding Ming and Cheng Rifeng were locked in a fierce battle. From the surveillance screen, 2 fiery red laser knives were spinning around a dark golden longsword. Not long after, they turned into 2 red whirlpools of light and a dark golden venomous snake that intertwined with each other. One could only see bursts of bright light, and it was impossible to see who was fighting. Seeing Dai Yi's unblinking expression, Nightmare said in a low voice, "Miss Dai, there's no need to worry. I naturally have my reasons for closing the cabin door." Dai Yi did not understand this reasoning, but Ding Ming quickly understood because Xiao AI finally spoke up. "ACT 5570, I've detected a large amount of harmful substances in this passage." Ding Ming did not have the time to answer, so he could only let Little Rascal ask, "Harmful substances again?" Xiao AI said, "This chemical substance is the same poison that Nightmare used in the villa. The composition is exactly the same, but the concentration, density, and quantity are at least 300% higher." Little Rascal immediately understood. Nightmare must have closed the cabin door. His target was not Ding Ming, because he knew that Ding Ming was immune to the source-devouring agent. However, Cheng Rifeng might not be able to resist it. However, Cheng Rifeng was so strong that even a little bit of the source-devouring agent might not have any effect. Therefore, increasing the level and dosage might have a miraculous effect. Little Rascal was overjoyed. This Nightmare is really good at scheming. I like it. Cheng Rifeng quickly realized that for some reason, his movements were slowly becoming less nimble. His limbs were aching, and his origin energy circulation was becoming somewhat sluggish. He knew very well that he had most likely fallen into Nightmare's trap. Logically speaking, the armor's internal air circulation system should have been able to provide him with sufficient oxygen for a long time. However, when he had forced his way in, his left arm and shoulder had been crushed by the steel plate at the entrance, so the poisonous gas had slowly seeped into the gap. With a click, the cabin door opened again, and Nightmare's voice rang out in the passage. "Mr. Ting, retreat quickly." Ding Ming naturally would not miss this opportunity. The armor was half squatting on the ground, seemingly exhausted. "Retreat my ass." Cheng Rifeng clenched his teeth in anger. He clearly could have dealt with Ding Ming, but in the end, he had been tricked instead. This feeling was the most infuriating. The moment the cabin door opened, the armor's arms and shoulders switched to cannons and firing ports at the same time. A large number of particle lasers and a Stinger missile swarmed toward him. "Careful!" Little Rascal and Xiao AI cried out in alarm at the same time. Ding Ming couldn't care less. He instantly activated his origin energy and activated his diamond mirror image shield. Ding, 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 ding. When the particles hit, the surface of the mirror image immediately cracked slightly, and its color rapidly faded. This was because Ding Ming had used too much energy. The energy in his body could no longer support the perfect release of the Diamond Star art. Therefore, when the Stinger missile whistled through the air, the mirror image shattered with a bang, and Ding Ming slid back 5 or 6 meters. The shockwave from the explosion instantly sent the general flying, and he slammed into the wall of the command center. Nightmare, on the other hand, didn't care about the effects of the explosion at all. He forced himself to step forward and operate the screen, instantly closing the cabin door and locking Cheng Rifeng inside. He also rushed into the fire to support Ding Ming. "Are you okay?" Ding Ming sighed softly. Thank goodness I'm fine. The King of Nightmares pressed a series of buttons on the screen, and a series of rumbling sounds could be heard for the connecting cabin channel. What's going on? Little Rascal asked. Fortunately, Nightmare took the initiative to explain. I've disconnected the cabin, and there's enough air inside for Chung Riffing to use. He's drifting in space, and it'll take a while for the ships following behind to search for him. This way we can still buy some time. Ding-Ming also walked to the main control panel. The map showed that the transport ship of the raiding party was rapidly flying in his direction. The estimated time for the two ships to cross over was 28 minutes. Now that the connecting cabin had been tossed out, the speed of the red dots behind him had slowed down significantly. It seemed that escaping into the transport ship shouldn't be a problem. However, at this moment, Ding-Ming frowned. Nightmare was puzzled. What's wrong, Mr. Ting? Ding-Ming turned to look at the other passage that led to the warehouse and said in a deep voice, "Come out." Nightmare was shocked. There are other people on this ship? Why didn't I notice? Sure enough, two figures sneaked out from behind the door of the warehouse passage. Mao Zi's face was bitter. He thought that he could hide, but he did not expect to be discovered by Ding-Ming at a glance. At this moment, the four-eyed man found a piece of dry animal skin and wrapped his body up. He looked like a primitive savage. Ding-Ming. Oh no, it's Ding. Brother Ding. Mao Zi's teeth were chattering. The four-eyed man was no longer cold, but it would be a lie to say that he was not afraid, so he coughed dryly. We... Ding-Ming coldly interrupted him. Come here. Mao Zi immediately pushed the four-eyed man. Brother, you go first. The four-eyed man shot up like an arrow and then desperately shrank back. F***CK your sister. Are you trying to kill me? Why don't you go first? As he shrank back, he tried to drag Mao Zi. Obviously, he wanted to pull Mao Zi up. Mao Zi was furious and desperately pushed him. F***CK you. I said that I'll enjoy life, but you're going to die. Why didn't you keep your promise? The four-eyed man kicked Mao Zi's butt. F***CK your sister. I'm younger than you, and I haven't even been in a relationship. I can't die like this. Mao Zi, you bastard, you were cheated on by your ex. I haven't even gotten the qualification to be cheated on. I can't go first. Mao Zi immediately took out a pack of cigarettes. Come, take it. I'll give you this pack of old red plums. You have to go first. F***CK you. The four-eyed man slapped the cigarette pack away. You smoked until there are only 2 cigarettes left in the pack. One of them is still a cigarette, and you said that you're giving it to me. Are you trying to dismiss a beggar? Give me a whole pack, and I'll go first. The two of them were still pushing each other when Ding-Ming suddenly appeared in front of them. The four-eyed man immediately put his hands together and knelt down with a plop. Big brother Ding, it's none of my business. I don't want to be a mercenary anymore. Can you give me a way out? Brother Ding, Master Ding. Ding-Ming ignored him and said to Mao Zi, give me the wristband. Mao Zi did not dare to resist. He had seen the heaven-defying scene of Ding-Ming fighting Chung Riffing in the open space. He did not even have the thought of running away, let alone resisting. Playing tricks in front of such a fierce person was courting death, so Mao Zi could only obediently take off his wristband and hand it to Ding-Ming. The four-eyed man's wristband had always been on Ding-Ming. Now that Mao Zi's wristband was turned on, their information quickly appeared on the screen. Name, Mao Zi. Gender, male. Age, 33 years old. Identity, Serious Mercenary Group, number 74088. Military merit, -12 points. Name, Yin. Gender, male. Age, 30 years old. Identity, Serious Mercenary Group, number 54088. Military merit, -22 points. Seeing these information, even Dai, he could not help but want to laugh. Their names were so strange, but why were their military merits in the negative? It was no wonder that these two guys did not want to work anymore and just wanted to run away. Ding-Ming felt that although these two people were junior warriors, they did not have any dangerous aura. Moreover, he had never liked to attack people who did not want to resist. Besides, he needed to rest now, so it was not wise to attack them. So he turned back and nodded slightly at King of Nightmares. Forget it. Since he said forget it, King of Nightmares had no choice but to let it go. Chapter 193. In the depths of the vast space, the star ring, carrying the starship, had already spat out 2 rings of brilliant white crystal flames. It was like a cannonball had been fired, whistling as it flew towards the Zoisha system. After a long time, the stabilizer's power system shut down. The white crystal flames slowly extinguished, and the speed of the starship slowed down again. At the same time, the entire starship slowly turned. The giant door connecting the side wing opened, and the blazing shark ship quickly slid in. Inside the starship, the rescue port was like a 5-story tall steel furnace. Other than the blazing shark that flew in, there were also 3 swordfish ships docked. Nightmare couldn't help but sigh. The surprise attack army does have some capital. No wonder Huang Long wanted to cooperate with you. His sigh was not without reason. The surprise attack army and Sky Wolf army were not weak as a whole. The surprise attack army had a strong transportation ability, but the individual mercenaries were very weak. Sky Wolf was strong in terms of wealth, but they were not willing to spend money on transportation. Such a large army did not even have a slightly larger starship. Otherwise, they would not have been able to escape here. The Grand Marshal limped down from the spaceship while dragging his arm. That was not what he was concerned about. Now that he had returned to the army's starship, he was the boss, so he was curious. Where's Ahuanhua? Why is no one coming out to welcome us? Ding Ming suddenly stopped behind him and said in a strange tone, "Don't worry, the people coming to welcome you will be here soon." As soon as he finished speaking, a large group of mercenaries rushed out from the railing on the 2nd floor of the maintenance floor. Each of them was armed with long guns and short cannons. They surrounded them from all directions. Looking at the way the guns were aimed, they felt that they were not coming with good intentions. The commander was furious. "Are you crazy? Can't you see that I'm back? What are you doing? If you're still holding weapons, put them all away." "They're not crazy." Ding Ming suddenly calmed down. His gaze fell on the maintenance stairs on the 1st and 2nd floors. "I'm just afraid that it will be your turn to be crazy next." Following his gaze, Ahua's figure finally appeared on the stairs. However, Ahua did not rush up to greet him as he usually did. Instead, he walked down the stairs at a leisurely pace. His demeanor was like the general's usual walking posture, full of vigor and dignity. The commander finally felt that something was wrong. He could not help but scold. "Hua, what are you doing? Pointing a gun at me? Are you rebelling?" Ding Ming let out a long sigh. "You don't have to shout. He's not Hua." This. Everyone was shocked. Sure enough, Hua went down to the 1st floor. As he walked over, he took off the black goggles on his face and smiled. "Sorry, I almost didn't make it. Fortunately, I picked you up in time." He was surprised and happy. He ran over happily. "Uncle Bai." This person was none other than the vice commander of the Green Arrow Army, Bai Yu smiled even more happily. "Little E, are you okay? I haven't heard from you for more than half a month. I'm very worried." He smiled and said, "I've made Uncle Bai worry. I'm fine. Fortunately, I have Ding Ming by my side." Ding Ming also smiled meaningfully. "Of course you're fine. Now it's our turn." Seeing his strange smile, he could not help but ask, "Ding Ming, what's wrong with you?" Ding Ming sighed. "Miss Dai, don't you think it's strange? Why did the vice commander of the Green Arrow Army board the transport ship of the surprise attack army?" The commander's face was pale. "Bai, the surprise attack army has never interfered with the Green Arrow Army." "What do you mean by this?" Facing their questions, he was even more confused. "Ding Ming, Uncle Bai is here to pick us up. Is there a problem?" Bai was still smiling. "Little brother Ding, I said before that the Green Arrow Army will reward you greatly after this. This time, it's all thanks to you." Ding Ming ignored him and asked, "I have a question that I don't understand." Bai said, "What question?" Ding Ming said, "That bottle of reagent. What's the time limit that the Darknet gave the Green Arrow Army to retrieve it?" Bai was stunned by the question, but he still smiled and said, "Fortunately, we picked you up. If we rushed back to the Federation, I calculated that there was still enough time." Ding Ming said, "But this doesn't explain why you appeared on this starship." After saying this, he suddenly appeared beside Dai E in a flash. Without giving Dai E any time to react, he grabbed her waist and pulled her into his arms. Bai Yu's expression changed. Ding Meng, what are you doing? Don't be rude to Miss Dai. Ding Meng? Dai E was also shocked by Ding Meng's sudden action, but she did not struggle because she believed from the bottom of her heart that Ding Meng did not have any ill intentions towards her. Moreover, being hugged by Ding Meng, she could feel the origin energy in Ding Meng's chest was surprisingly hot. She did not dislike it. This was a classic example of a woman finding a man pleasing to the eye, so this man could not arouse her resistance no matter what. Ding Meng turned his head to look at her and said calmly, Miss Dai, I'll have to trouble you again. If I didn't pull you over, the people around us would have shot us full of holes. What's going on? Dai also felt that something was wrong. Ding Meng hugged her and slowly retreated to King of Nightmares and the others. Now, including himself, Dai E, King of Nightmares, Marshall, and Yin Jie, who was being supported by Four Eyes and Harry, a total of 7 people were gathered in front of the spaceship. Everyone was exposed to the surrounding mercenaries' guns. There was almost nowhere to hide in this place. It was not that they could not hide at all, but they really could not easily start a fight now. The situation was far more complicated than they had imagined. Ding Meng stared at Bai Yu. Officer Bai, you don't have to lie anymore. Before we left, I asked Captain Salmon in private. The Darknet only gave the Green Arrow Corps 1 month to find them. Miss Dai set off from planet KV-303, and it has been 20 days since then. Now, you're telling me that there's still enough time to rush back to the Federation. Do you think that's possible? Bai Yu's expression darkened. What are you trying to say? Ding Meng sighed. Originally, I still believe in the Green Arrow Corps, but after I arrived at Feishing City, I kept feeling that there were too many suspicious points about this matter. In fact, he did not believe in the Green Arrow Corps at all. He did not believe in almost any mercenary corps. The one he truly believed in was Salmon. He believed that such a person had given up his bright future and was willing to stay on a planet with a harsh environment and scarce resources to protect a group of refugees. Ding Meng knew that he could not be so noble, but he had always respected such a person. He believed that such a person could not be deceitful and evil. It was hard for him to refuse such a person's request, which was why he had made this trip to Feishing City. Bai Yu's eyes narrowed. What's suspicious? Ding Meng said, It's very simple. There are too many coincidences in this matter. Bai Yu also stared at him. What coincidences can there be? Ding Meng said, Logically speaking, Miss Dai should not have gone to Feishing City to negotiate with the Skywolf Corps. At least, the person who should have gone should not have been her, but one of her brothers. Only they can truly represent the Dai family. Bai Yu frowned. I don't understand what you mean. Ding Meng said, What I mean is very simple. It's not that Miss Dai's status is not high enough. It's just that for a young lady like Miss Dai to come to Feishing City, first of all, she is still inexperienced. The negotiation may not go smoothly. Secondly, by coming here herself, she has unknowingly sent a bad signal to the Skywolf Corps, which is that the Dai family does not attach much importance to this negotiation. Dai was the eldest daughter of the 5th branch of the Dai family. It was hard to describe her status, but if she was the eldest son of the eldest branch, then the effect would be different. Even Dai herself could understand this. Bai Yu stared at him with great interest. And then, Ding Meng said, The goal of some people is very likely to break up the negotiation or to make it impossible for the negotiation to go smoothly. Because if everything went smoothly, Miss Dai would have already returned to the Green Arrow base with the reagents. The matter would have been resolved logically, and none of these things would have happened. Bai Yu pondered for a while and asked, Who are the some people you are talking about? Ding Meng said, I don't know who they are, either, but I have a feeling that everything that happened in Feishing City seemed to have been arranged in advance. The people behind the scenes must be some people. It wasn't that he was a conspiracy theorist. After the Blue Ice incident, he had indeed become more vigilant in this regard. Sometimes, no matter whether it was a good thing or a bad thing, nothing was as simple as it seemed on the surface, especially when it came to surviving in outer space. Everything had a reason, and there was bound to be an outcome. Bai said, "Can I interpret it this way? Do you think that Miss Dai's trip to Feishing City was arranged by someone behind the scenes?" Ding Meng put on a weird smile. I didn't believe it at first, either. But gradually, I started to believe it. Bai was curious. "Is that so?" Ding Meng continued. "What method did the culprit use to make the Dai family send Miss Dai instead of someone else to Feishing City? I don't know the reason, but I do know one thing for sure. As long as Miss Dai landed in Feishing City, she wouldn't be able to go back for a while. It's very likely that she would never be able to go back." He was infuriated when he mentioned that. "Are you talking about Huang Long?" Ding Meng said casually, "It doesn't matter whether or not Huang Long molested you that night, because you were trapped in Feishing City. The fact that you couldn't go back for the time being was the result that the culprit wanted." Dai was puzzled. "Why?" Ding Meng said, "Think about it. If it was the commander of the Heavenly Wolf Legion who negotiated with you, the negotiation might not have collapsed that day." He still couldn't figure out. "But Huang Long agreed to my request that morning and returned the reagents, didn't he?" Ding Meng sneered. "But why did he ask the nightmare to poison you at night?" He blushed a little. "Didn't he want to? You're wrong. It's not like that." Ding Meng immediately interrupted her. "I told you the other day that if things go too smoothly, it will give people the wrong feeling. The result may not be a good thing." He was silent for a while before she sighed. "That's true," Ding Meng said. "Any important person in the Heavenly Wolf Legion can negotiate with you, but Huang Long can't be the one to negotiate with you. You should know the reason why." He naturally knew that Huang Long was so daring that he even dared to have designs on her. If Yin Fengwei and Rinzhan were present at the time, not only would the negotiation result have been different, the incident that night would not have happened. He suddenly understood. Commander Yin wasn't in Feishing City at the time, nor was he in the Jifan division. That's right. Ding Meng turned his head and stared at her. His expression was very serious. "The commander wasn't at home, and Huang Long was the one to negotiate with you. Is it really such a coincidence?" Chapter 194. Commander Yin had some business to attend to at that time. "This is very normal for the commander of a mercenary group," Bai explained. "What's so strange about that?" Ding Meng countered. "But this reagent is related to the advancement of a beginner war venerable to an intermediate war venerable. For an origin ability user, what could be more important than this? Also, I don't believe that Yin Fengwei didn't receive any information about Miss Dai's visit to the Zoisha division. He didn't want the reagent and ran off to attend to other matters. Did he really think that the reagent was already in his bag? No one could take it away from him? No matter how you explain it, his actions are still illogical." Bai couldn't say anything because no one could refute Ding Meng's analysis. Ding Meng turned his head and looked at the marshal. "If this is a coincidence, then is it also a coincidence that the marshal appeared in Meteor City?" The marshal wanted to say something, but stopped. Ding Meng coldly snorted. "You must have explained it this way to others. You and Huang Long were discussing the details of the surprise attack and cooperation with Tianlang. In reality, you know very well what your true intentions are." The marshal had to admit that his reason could be explained to outsiders. Tianlang was lacking in transportation resources, while the surprise attack group had sufficient resources. Thus, there was no problem with the cooperation between the two sides. However, this reason was completely different to an expert. At this moment, Nightmare disdainfully snorted. "What's there to discuss? Tianlang is the general commander of Green Arrow, and even someone like Butcher can ignore him. Your surprise attack group is far inferior to Green Arrow's. If I were Yin Fengwei, I would be the one to lose face by cooperating with you. What's there to discuss?" Ding Meng stared at the marshal. "You also know that Huang Long is a pervert. You sent him a bunch of beauties and even promised that Miss Dai would be a beauty among beauties. Were these the conditions he gave you for the password?" The marshal's head drooped. He had to admit it, even if he didn't want to. "Yes," Ding Meng said. "But with just you alone, it is impossible for you to obtain the treasures and secrets in the Sky Wolf Army's warehouse. This was also a fact. After all, the marshal only had the strength of an ordinary mercenary. He didn't have the ability to rob openly or secretly. Ding Ming continued, "Is there such a person who does not represent any force, is good at stealing, and is also a very strong origin ability master, who can come to Flying Star City calmly and leave without anyone knowing?" Dai Yi said hesitantly, "Ding Ming, aren't you the same?" Hearing this, Ding Ming could only smile bitterly. However, little rascal was immediately amused. Women who fall in love really have zero IQ, haha. Nightmare suddenly sighed. Based on what you said, there's only one person in this star field who has these characteristics, and that person is me. Ding Ming said, "That's why I said that night that you weren't honest. Not only did you covet the money Huang Long gave you, but you also had your eyes on the wealth. From this, it can be seen that you, Huang Long, and Butcher were in cahoots beforehand. However, there's another problem here. Huang Long and Butcher didn't know your true goal. Nightmare had 3 true goals. The first was the commission Huang Long had promised him for the ransom. The second was the secret of Tian Lang's wealth. The third was his own personal stash, trying to steal the silver core stones that operated the starrings. However, Ding Ming didn't reveal his third goal. Without a doubt, it was also because Nightmare had cooperated with him to keep this a secret. Nightmare hesitated for a moment before sighing. "It was Marshall who told me about the wealth in the warehouse." Ding Ming looked at the Marshal. "That's right. You two are working together, one in the open and one in the dark. Tian Lang's wealth is a secret, so there should be even fewer people who know about it. How did you find out? If I'm not wrong, it was Lon Bing from Extreme Sky Corporation who told you, right?" He didn't wait for the Marshal to answer and continued. "In the end, when you arrived at Meteor City, you didn't expect me to come as well. Moreover, I came with Miss Dai. So, you passed the information to Extreme Sky Corporation. You explained that you want to get more money, but I knew that you weren't finished. On the surface, Jia Mao was sent by Extreme Sky Corporation as reinforcements for you. They wanted to capture me, but in reality, they wanted to kill 2 birds with 1 stone." Dai, he couldn't help but ask, "They wanted to capture you and get the wealth at the same time?" Ding Ming said, "Because after the Marshal arrived, things changed again. First, Ren Zhan and Butcher returned to Meteor City, and Chang Wei was in charge of the command center. At that time, I appeared, and Yin Jie fell into my hands. Yin Fengwei was on his way back. If things dragged on, with so many powerful people gathered together, even if he and Nightmare worked together, the chances of getting the wealth were close to 0. Therefore, Jia Mao came to reinforce the 2 of them. As for that Xiaolong, I was also wondering why a statistician would come to Meteor City. I finally understood. Not only did he want to calculate my location, but he also wanted to calculate the precise coordinates of the wealth. Therefore, their biggest goal was to get the secret of Tian Lang's wealth." Dai, he suddenly remembered what Nightmare had said to the Marshal when they escaped from the underground. "You're a retard. Do you think you're lucky to have survived until now? If I didn't let you into the energy warehouse, would you have been able to steal it?" Ding Ming's speculation was correct. Why did the King of Nightmares keep the general alive? Even when Ding Ming was fighting with Renjan, Nightmare had asked the Marshal to follow him, and in the end, he still wanted to force him to hand over the backpack. So, this was the real reason. For a moment, Dai, he was filled with mixed feelings. He didn't expect that such a simple negotiation mission would be so complicated. These people were all cunning, scheming, and taking advantage of each other. However, she was also relieved. At least, Ding Ming was not like that. Not only was Ding Ming a sensible man, he was also on her side from the beginning to the end. Now, Ding Ming's hand was still around her slender waist. She felt that Ding Ming was hugging her very tightly, and his hand was very hot. She was a little shy, but she didn't break free. Ding Ming said to the Marshal again, "Of course, this is all my wishful thinking. I didn't think it would be so deep, but after I asked you in the energy warehouse, I immediately figured out the cause and effect. Now, let me ask you one question. Is what I said true?" This time, the Marshal was silent for a long time. Finally, He let out a long sigh. I told Misty that if you want my life, I have nothing to say. If you really want to kill me, that's what I deserve. His answer was undoubtedly admitting that Ding Meng's speculation was completely reasonable. Ding Meng turned to look at Nightmare. What about you? Nightmare bowed slightly. I'm really sorry, Mr. Ting. I didn't mean to hide it. Please believe that I won't do anything that will harm your interests. I believe that. Ding Meng nodded, then turned to face Bai Yu. Officer Bai, the facts have proven that I didn't speak nonsense. There is indeed someone behind all this. Bai Yu was deep in thought. Then, who is this person? Ding Meng's gaze became sharp, and his tone was rather stiff. I'm afraid I'll have to ask you, Officer Bai. Bai Yu was still deep in thought. This person is very likely to be Extreme Heaven Corporation's Chu Yifeng or Lan Binger. His speculation was reasonable. Chu Yifeng and Lan Binger had done so many things because they had their eyes on the wealth of the Celestial Wolf Corps. Ding Meng smiled again. I dare to bet that it's definitely not them. Bai Yu said, Oh. Ding Meng said, Chu Yifeng and Lan Binger didn't have to play so many tricks. If people like them really appeared in Meteor City, perhaps Yan Fengwei wouldn't even have time to curry favor with them. Why would they need to set up such a trap? Bai Yu said, Then, who do you think this person is? Ding Meng stopped smiling and said seriously, Do you remember what Butcher said to us when we first met on the space station of Qiming No. 1? Commander Bai, you've traveled a long way to bring Miss Dai here. It must have been hard on you. If you don't mind, please stay in the space station for a while. You can escort Miss Dai back after the matter is settled. If Commander Bai isn't used to the living conditions of the space station, it won't be a problem for you to pick Miss Dai up another day. I've already notified the service port. They must supply Commander Bai's spaceship with enough energy for the return trip. If Commander Bai needs any supplies, please don't hesitate to ask. Ding Meng said, word by word. Human Butcher's words were problematic in the first place. The negotiation might have taken days, but it could also have been a matter of a few words. However, Human Butcher seemed to have known that it would take a long time. It was fine that he had a problem, but you had a bigger one. Human Butcher had clearly said that, but you turned around and left without any objection. You were here to escort Miss Dai, and you could have waited until everything was settled on the space station before leaving with Miss Dai. Even if something happened between us and Huang Long later, you could have come to the Flying Star City to mediate, and there would still be room for negotiation. But you ran away faster than anybody else. Bai Yu's face completely darkened. What do you mean by that? Ding Meng said, You've planned all of this a long time ago. By sending Miss Dai here, you've basically pushed her into a fire pit. Whether she lives or dies has nothing to do with you. Then, you ran straight here and waited for the Commander and King of Nightmares to come to you. Hearing this conclusion, everyone was dumbfounded, especially Dai Yi, King of Nightmares, and the Commander. The three of them did not expect that the real mastermind behind all of this was actually Bai Yu. Bai Yu sneered. I'm afraid this is just your wishful thinking. Ding Meng also sneered. If I were you, I'd probably do the same. Find someone to steal the reagent, sell it to Sirius, and then threaten Green Arrow with it. Sirius ignored Green Arrow, and Green Arrow's boss had no choice but to use the Dai family. I don't know what method you used, but you made the Dai family send Miss Dai to Meteor City, and then sold the information to the Extreme Heaven, Nightmare, and Marshall families, making them fight for it openly and secretly. In any case, the one who reaped the benefits in the end would be you. Think about it. Your appearance in this place is very clear. You didn't wait around the space station, but you came here in the opposite direction. Because you calculated from the beginning that no matter who succeeded in the end, they could only escape in this direction when faced with the pursuit of Sirius. Therefore, this is the final hurdle, and no one can pass through. Even the heavens can't stop you from intercepting here. Bai Yu also stared at Ding Meng, as if he wanted to swallow Ding Meng alive. Continue. Chapter 195. Ding Meng sneered. As for why you didn't get involved in this personally, it's because the Green Arrow Corps has always cherished their reputation, and you are the vice commander of the main corps. This kind of thing is even more impossible to do. You must be familiar with the relationship between Green Arrow, Sky Wolf, and the Dai family, and even their internal operations. You must know a lot of information and inside information. If it were anyone else, even Chu Yifeng or Lan Bing from Extreme Heaven Corporation, they wouldn't be able to set up this trap. There's only one thing that proves this. After the reagent was lost, Green Arrow and Sky Wolf's negotiations were fruitless. Green Arrow's boss must have asked the Dai family for help. How could this mastermind guess so accurately? This person is most likely one of the higher-ups within Green Arrow. Bayou stared at him and actually laughed again. If I'm really as you say, and you've already run here, why don't I just kill you all and leave with the spoils of war? Ding Meng laughed. It's simple. You knew that Miss Dai's trip was fraught with grim possibilities and that she wouldn't be able to come back. But Miss Dai is fine. When you saw that Miss Dai was fine and even came with us, you naturally didn't dare to act rashly. This is because the Dai family is still a deterrent to you. You can't let anyone find out that Miss Dai was harmed by you. Bayou raised his head and took a deep breath. He said sternly, "All right, you've said so much, and I admit that it makes sense. But where's the evidence? Can I trouble you to show me the evidence?" Evidence? Ding Meng looked at him with disdain. It's easy if you want evidence. I'll get it for you immediately. Ding Meng turned to look at Nightmare. If I'm not wrong, you must have accepted a mission on the Darknet to steal the reagent that Green Arrow was transporting, right? Nightmare nodded. Yes. Ding Meng said, "How much did the employer offer?" Nightmare said, 500,000 star coins. Ding Meng said, "In the Darknet's bounty hunter system, missions with a reward of 50,000 star coins are quite tricky. The one you accepted is 500,000 star coins. What level is that?" The King of Nightmares immediately understood what he meant and quickly replied, "More than 500,000 star coins are considered to be of a relatively high level. The Darknet itself has records of important transactions, and there are similar records in the wristwatches of both parties. This cannot be deleted. The reason is that the amount is too large. If both parties have opinions and differences in the future, the Darknet can also resolve the dispute through the records of the three parties." Ding Meng turned around and looked at Bayou coldly. "I believe that you can do such a thing, so I hope that as few people know about it as possible. Then, the mission must be issued by you yourself. Do you dare to turn on your wristband and show us the records of the Darknet bounty hunter system? That is the best evidence." Bayou's pupils instantly contracted. He never imagined that this fellow, Ding Meng, was actually smart to such an extent. This seemingly flawless setup was actually cracked by a 20-year-old brat with just a few words. Bayou is definitely not stupid enough to touch his wristband. At this moment, his face became expressionless. He gritted his teeth and said, "Of all the things I shouldn't have done, I shouldn't have listened to that bastard Salman. He said that you're young and strong, and it's best for you to accompany Miss Dai to the negotiation. I didn't expect it to be a nobody like you. In the end, you ruined my big plan." When he said this, there was no doubt that he admitted that he was the instigator behind the scenes. Dai Yi's whole body turned cold when he heard this. He pointed at Bayou and said in disbelief, "Uncle Bai, the Dai family has always trusted you and treated you well. You even betrayed me?" Ding Meng said, "He has his reasons for doing so." Bayou snorted disdainfully. "If you can guess the reason, I'll really admire you." Ding Meng let out a long sigh. "I might be able to guess the reason," Bayou said in surprise. "Oh," Ding Meng said, "you dared to use Miss Dai as a chess piece and even prepared to push her out as cannon fodder. Perhaps it's because you already have the confidence to not fear the Dai family's revenge. Of course, with your strength as a war venerable and your status as the deputy commander of the Green Arrow Corps, I'm afraid this confidence is not enough." Bayou's face darkened, and he did not speak. Ding Meng said, "The only explanation is that you've attached yourself to a bigger power. With the support of this power, you won't care about the Dai family and the Green Arrow Corps at all. But the strange thing is, if there really is such a powerful power, why would they care about your status as the war venerable of the Green Arrow Corps? You should be a beginner war venerable, right?" Bayou gritted his teeth and said, "I'll be patient and listen what you have to say today. Ding Meng said, I'm guessing that such a power might not think highly of you. After all, you're already at this age, and your future development might be limited. But you're also trying to curry favor with them, and you're not willing to stay in the Green Arrow Corps for the rest of your life. Maybe they're giving you a chance to prove yourself. This chance is for you to quietly bring out the wealth of the Celestial Wolf Corps. This proves that you're still very useful. Otherwise, I can't think of any other reason why they would let you do such a boring thing. His tone was full of emotion. He made this judgment based on a conversation he had with Sleeman when they were drinking on planet KV-303. Sleeman, they've either joined the Federation or gone to the Empire. At that level, who would stay outside as a bounty hunter? But according to the Deputy Commander, our Green Arrow's current Chief Commander and Deputy Commander are also war venerables. The Federal Empire has tried to rope them in many times, but they still haven't left. Ding Meng, why? Sleeman, I don't know the reason. He didn't know, but Ding Meng knew very well that not every origin ability master could act according to their inner feelings like Sleeman, silently protecting the weak. Even though his abilities weren't strong, even though his contributions were meager, even though he was a pedantic and incurable retard in the eyes of others, his efforts had fulfilled his belief. The mission of us origin ability masters isn't to pursue fame and fortune, but to fight for those who can't fight. It wasn't difficult for a person to fight for their own beliefs. The difficult part was that no matter what setbacks they encountered, they could still persevere for many years. That was precious. Although Sleeman was very ordinary, Ding Meng felt that he had learned a lot from him that he couldn't learn. Baiyu finally revealed a shocked expression. Good kid, you're really something. You're not bad. Hearing this, the Marshal was furious. Where are my brothers on this ship? Where did they go? What the F***CK did you do to them? Baiyu sneered disdainfully. Don't worry, you can't reunite with them for the time being. I'll keep you around for use. Marshal who? You're also a smart person. If you come over now, I guarantee that you'll live well. Before the Marshal could answer, Baiyu's figure suddenly became a little blurry, as if giving you an illusion. Your vision seemed to be a little blurry. In just an instant, Baiyu's figure returned to normal. However, the abnormal part was that there was an extra satchel in Baiyu's hand, the dazzling gold backpack of the Celestial Wolf Corps. This backpack had originally been slung over Nightmare's shoulder, but now it was on Baiyu's shoulder. Dai, Eve, Four Eyes, Harry, and the Marshal all looked at Baiyu and Nightmare in shock. They didn't know what was going on. Nightmare was even more shocked than them. How did Baiyu take the backpack? Not only did he not react, but he also didn't feel anything at all. Only Ding Meng's heart continued to sink, because he was the only one present who had clearly seen that Baiyu was a light-speed origin ability user. What he had just used was the most basic light-speed origin ability user, the divine movement technique. Ding Meng had seen this kind of technique from Xingyi before. In fact, it wasn't very profound, and the principle was similar to transient steps. But what was frightening was that Baiyu had actually practiced it to such a degree. When he had flashed over, it had been almost silent. Even the air hadn't fluctuated in the slightest, and then he had teleported back to his original position. Moreover, when he had reached out to take the backpack, Nightmare hadn't reacted at all. His control of power could be said to be quite precise. Shout AI suddenly said, a peak-level martial arts technique. According to my evaluation, he has at least a combat value of over 100,000 points. Ding Meng didn't move. At this time, the most important thing was to calm down. He couldn't act blindly without thinking. Looking at the dumbfounded expressions of this group of people, Baiyu suddenly laughed. So what if you doubt me? This backpack is destined not to belong to you. Ding Meng also laughed, but it wasn't a proud laugh. Instead, it was a self-deprecating laugh. I understand now. Baiyu asked curiously. Oh. Ding Meng said, what you said just now was very correct. Why didn't you kill us all and then leave with the loot? Because you wanted to keep us alive on purpose. Baiyu laughed. Let's hear it. I'm interested again. Ding Meng said, since this starship is under your control, you must have done something to it long ago. When serious main force catches up, You will have already run far away, leaving us behind to take the blame for you. From the looks of it, you didn't do anything at all. You didn't attack us, and you didn't treat Misty rudely either. Even if someone discovers that something is wrong with you in the future, they still can't say anything. What a brilliant move. When Ding Meng said this, Nightmare and the others noticed that the mercenaries on the second floor had all gone down to the first floor, and the encirclement was shrinking. Moreover, the doors of the 3 swordfish spaceships next to them opened automatically. The chassis opened, the engines started, and the crystal flames appeared. It seemed that Bayou's group was ready to escape. As a large group of mercenaries boarded the starship, Bayou also laughed while retreating. Little brother Ding, you're really good. It's a pity that our paths are different. Otherwise, I could invite you to a small party of mine. Of course, I know that you won't be able to go because you have to stay behind to take care of Miss Dai and Miss Yen. So, I wish you good luck before we part. Let's meet again next time. Ding Meng nodded and sighed. There won't be a next time. This will be the last time. Bayou laughed. Smart, very smart. Then I won't say goodbye. Bye-bye. Have a nice trip. Then, the doors of the 3 swordfish spaceships closed. Crystal flames spurted out from the tails of the 3 swordfish spaceships one after another, and they flew toward the exit of the rescue port. Chapter 196. That guy slipped away just like that. Why do I feel like my eyes are playing tricks on me again? The only person who could say something like that was Four Eyes. Yeah, he summoned so many people, bragged for a while, and then slipped away? Hey, that's not right. The only person who could answer Four Eyes' question was a Russian. Slipped away? Big Handsome was confused. It'd be weird if he could run away. This is my starship. Then, he limped forward, only to be stopped by Ding Meng. Don't go. The control hall has been tampered with. Ding Meng had said so much to Bayou because he wanted to buy time for Little Rascal and Little AI. The two of them had been trying their best to hack into the starship's main system. However, Little Rascal and Little AI were not Xinjia. They did not have the kind of professional hacking skills that Xinjia possessed, so the feedback they received was not good news. Big Handsome, however, did not know this. He still did not believe it. Tampered with? What could that bastard know about tampering? Ding Meng sighed. Even if it's your starship, it's the same. That's the truth. As soon as he said that, the entire rescue port suddenly lit up with a red light, and the system's voice rang out. All crew members, 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 please evacuate immediately. I repeat, all crew members, please evacuate immediately. F***CK, Big Handsome's eyes widened. The so-called dangerous state meant that the starship's main system had been set to be in great danger and was about to disintegrate. The purpose of this was to let the crew escape as quickly as possible and minimize losses. If it was set to self-destruct, even if the crew could escape, they might not be able to avoid the aftermath of the explosion. The Sirius spaceship that was chasing after them would also be buried. It seemed that Bayou was still afraid of Yin Fengwei and did not dare to go too far. As for the lock-on mode, it was even easier to understand. Once it was set, it could not be changed. At least, with Ding Meng's group skill level, it could not be changed. If Xinjia had been there, there might have been a chance. That bastard. King of Nightmares cursed angrily. He understood Bayou's sinister intentions. Once the transport ship disintegrated, the spaceships chasing after it would form a huge search net, and no one would be able to escape. In the end, if they fell into the hands of the Skywolf army, they would most likely die. Putting everything else aside, Ding Meng had killed Rin Zhan, killed so many mercenaries, and destroyed so many facilities. The chances of Yin Fengwei letting them go were close to zero. Let's go back. Ding Meng made a prompt decision. He let go of Dai Yi and walked towards the blazing shark spaceship. Nightmare hesitated. Then what about this woman? Take them away together? He was referring to Yin Jia. Yin Jia was still unconscious, supported by Four-Eyed and Harry. Ding Meng's heart hardened again. Their target is her. put her into the escape pod, and launch her in the opposite direction. That way we can buy some time. Let's go." Hearing this, Four-Eyed could only pout helplessly. If the goddess was launched into space, there was a chance that the Skywolf army would not be able to rescue her. However, there was no other way. The Blazing Shark spaceship quickly started up and flew out of the rescue port of the transport ship. Looking from space, the transport ship had stopped flying long ago. Furthermore, the two stabilizers emitted two red rings of light, flashing in space. This was a warning to the spaceships behind that this starship was about to be in danger. The main control panel restarted, and the interstellar map was brought up again. King of Nightmare's expression was serious. "I wonder if the Sky Wolf Army spaceships will stop when they see this warning signal." The commander was obviously not satisfied. He reached out his left hand to fiddle with the map. "Which route did you take?" King of Nightmares shook his head. "It's useless." The commander asked why. King of Nightmares sighed. "The Swordfish spaceship's speed is much faster than mine. We can't catch up." The commander wanted to ask more questions, but Ding Meng said, "Don't think about that bag. If he can set up this trap, he must have set it up carefully. The Swordfish spaceship might not be the last thing he left behind. There might be another ship nearby to receive him." King of Nightmares agreed. "Mr. Ting is right. The most important thing now is to think of a way to protect ourselves. My ship doesn't have much energy left. We need to find a place to recharge." The commander could not help but ask, "What do you mean?" King of Nightmares zoomed in on the map. The map showed that the transport ship had just floated out of the Zoisha system. The green dot representing the Blazing Shark spaceship was facing two different routes, one up and the other down. Up was the direction of Nebula KV-3545, and down was a flashing purple galaxy. King of Nightmares explained, "If we fly in the direction of Nebula KV-3545, we should be able to contact the Green Arrow Corps base. If Mr. Ting asks for help, it shouldn't be a problem. After all, you and Miss Dai were hired by the Green Arrow Corps." Ding Meng also looked at the map and saw that the red dots were slowly closing in on the transport ship. "If I ask for help, how long will it take for us to meet up with the Green Arrow Corps spaceship?" King of Nightmares said, "At our current speed, it'll take us at least 40 hours, but if Yin Feng insists on chasing us to the end, he'll be able to catch up to us within 36 hours at the slowest." Ding Meng's expression did not look too good. "What about the other route?" King of Nightmares continued to fiddle with the map. The purple galaxy was quickly zoomed in, and it could be seen that this was a much more complicated galaxy than the Zoisha system. The entire galaxy was a strange red, and this red seemed to come from the center of the galaxy. Only the edges were purple, and the planet at the edge was the darkest purplish-black color. The commander's face paled. "This is Pandora Virus 4 of the E-Systems Nebula?" King of Nightmares' expression was complicated. "Yes, Pandora 4. It's a poisonous planet. Our spaceship can land there, but Yin Feng and the others won't be able to get there." Ding Meng sighed helplessly. "To be safe, let's go there." King of Nightmares did not say anything else. He turned around and bowed deeply to Ding Meng. Ding Meng was stunned. "What are you doing?" King of Nightmares took a deep breath. "I live on that planet." The commander was also stunned. "You're so good at poisoning. So, you were born on the poisonous planet?" He seemed to have figured out a lot of things at once. "No wonder you've been active in the nearby nebulas for so long. So, you've been hiding there, and that's why no one could find you." King of Nightmares turned around, and his expression changed again. It became dark and scary. "You shouldn't know this secret, so you must die." The commander took 2 steps back in shock. He was so nervous that he could not speak. You. King of Nightmares suddenly turned around. "Mr. Ting, I told you that I was going to save someone, and you promised me at the time. As long as we leave Flying Star City, you'll slowly figure out a way with me." Ding Meng pondered and said, "That's right. That promise still stands. I'll always keep my promise. Whether that place is the poisonous planet or not, I'll go with you." Dai looked at Ding Meng with admiration in her eyes. She hurried over and said, "Ding Meng, I'll go with you too." King of Nightmares said, Then, it's up to you whether commander who will die or not. I'll listen to your opinion, Mr. Ting. The commander was nervous again. Even he didn't believe that Ding Meng did not want to kill him. Ding Meng sighed. It was hard to tell the grudge between him and the commander now. If the commander had not listened to his arrangement and contacted the carrier in Flying Star City, it would have been hard to say whether or not the commander could have escaped alive. Ding Meng looked at the commander and said, "Forget it. I hope you can keep the secret of King of Nightmares. If it's leaked out, then I'm sorry. No matter where you go, I'll still come to find you." The commander felt as if he had been pardoned. He quickly raised his hand and said, "Ding Meng, no Ding. Brother Ding, thank you for not killing me. I've survived until now. If you hadn't reminded me in Flying Star City, I would have been sold out by you and the others. If I still dare to cause trouble for no reason, you don't need to look for me. I'll come to you with my life. If you have any orders in the future, I won't refuse." When he saw that the commander was obedient in front of Ding Meng, the four-eyed man also ran over to surrender. "Oh, Brother Ding, we won't talk nonsense. Don't worry. If I, the four-eyed man, talk nonsense, I'll be blinded for the rest of my life." Before he could finish his words, he was kicked away by the Russian. "Brother Ding, don't listen to the four-eyed man's bragging. I'm most honest. I'll hit wherever you point. I'm not a mischievous person. Give me a cigarette, and I can give you peace for a week." The four-eyed man got up from the ground and slapped him. "Mother asterisk her. You said that the old red plum was for me. In the end, you didn't even give me a F asterisk king cigarette, but you're so quiet. Mother asterisk her. Mother asterisk her. You hit my eyes again." The Russian did not show any signs of weakness and quickly wrestled with the four-eyed man. The two's martial arts were simple and straightforward, kicking each other's butts. Ding Meng ignored the quarrel between the two. Instead, he lowered his head and asked, "What planet are we going to Pandora now?" Little rascal's eyes drooped. "It's Pandora Virus 4, which means virus planet. It can also be called the Poison Barrier Planet." Xiao AI said, "According to the database, Planet V4 was originally a planet with a high mineral content, but the radiation was very high. Over time, it caused the metals and plants to mutate, resulting in a high level of toxins. Ordinary creatures have a hard time surviving there, and almost no one visits that place. As for how the mutation happened, there are no detailed records in the database. Furthermore, there is no detailed information on the specific situation of Planet V4. That's all we know, but a CT5570, you won't have any problems going there. The K virus is basically immune to most viruses, especially biological toxins and man-made chemicals." Ding Meng said, "All right, then we'll talk about it when we get there." Chapter 197. The spaceship quietly traveled through the universe. Looking through the window, the number of planets gradually decreased, and the boundless darkness seemed to have returned to normal. Because the Blazing Shark spaceship had limited energy, the induction cabins, nutrition cabins, and medical cabins in each lounge had stopped supplying energy. Dai felt extremely bored, so she tiptoed to the corridor leading to the lounge. Nightmare had been staying in the control hall. The Marshal, Four Eyes, and Harry were sleeping soundly in their respective rooms. At this moment, she discovered that Ding Meng's room was not closed. She was really curious about what Ding Meng was doing. In fact, Ding Meng had been holding his breath and meditating. The battle at Meteor City had consumed too much energy, and he needed time to recover. However, when Dai appeared at the door, Ding Meng could no longer cultivate and could only withdraw from the space of consciousness. There was no other way. The function of the K virus was too heaven-defying. He could not let anyone see that he could absorb origin energy without using the induction cabins. "Miss Dai, is there anything I can help you with?" Ding Meng slowly opened his eyes. In Dai Yi's eyes, Ding Meng's actions were even stranger. Although Nightmare Spaceship was rather shabby, it still had the basic living facilities. At the very least, every lounge was equipped with tables, chairs, sofas, beds, crystal projectors, and smart storage cabinets. Ding Meng was not lying on the bed. nor was he sitting on the sofa. Instead, he was sitting cross-legged on the floor. Not only did he not use any of the food and drinks, he did not even change out of the Celestial Wolf Corps uniform. He still looked dirty and messy. If it was half a month ago, Dai, you would definitely have despised him. But now, whenever she saw Ding Ming, she felt an indescribable sense of familiarity. "Cousin Ding Ming, I had nothing to do, so I wandered around. Sorry to disturb your rest." Dai, he was a little embarrassed. Ding Ming stood up. "Miss Dai, please sit." Dai, he had already taken a comfortable bath in her room. Then, she picked out a set of clothes from the storage cabinet and changed into them. Speaking of which, it was strange. Although King of Nightmare's spaceship did not have enough energy, the storage cabinet was filled with all kinds of women's fashion. Could it be that King of Nightmares had a hobby of collecting women's clothing? After witnessing the sordidness and cunningness of all kinds of people in Flying Star City, Dai, he was quite experienced. She was very sensitive to the slightest anomaly, too. But as long as she was near Ding Ming, all her worries were gone. At this moment, Dai, he was wearing a relatively loose light yellow mid-length jacket and a pair of wide brown bell-bottoms. Logically speaking, this outfit didn't have any special features, but it gave people the feeling that this outfit was definitely an alluring good figure. Ding Ming frowned slightly as soon as she entered the room. He had been trying to get used to the smell of the opposite sex. Xiao AI had told him that he had to get used to it as soon as possible so that he wouldn't get distracted from time to time. "Ding Ming, I suddenly thought of a problem." Dai, it was a typical case of looking for trouble. What's the problem?" Ding Ming also sat down on the sofa and pulled out 2 cups of calming tea from his backpack on the coffee table. Dai, he looked at his backpack. "I remember that you stole King of Nightmare's backpack. It's the same model as yours." Ding Ming unscrewed the cap of the calming tea and handed the cup to her. "What's wrong?" Dai tried to think. "Both of your backpacks are exactly the same. But why did you steal King of Nightmare's backpack and not yours?" It seems like he already knew that the items of the Celestial Wolf Corps were in King of Nightmare's backpack. Ding Ming could not help but laugh. "Actually, this is very easy to determine. I don't know if you noticed, but there are metal marks on King of Nightmare's backpack." Dai, he was momentarily stunned, but she quickly figured it out. When King of Nightmares and Chung Rifeng fought, King of Nightmares was directly sent flying by Chung Rifeng's face. King of Nightmare's backpack smashed into the steel plate of the Blazing Shark spaceship. That was probably how the metal marks came about. But what does this mean? Dai, he did not understand. Ding Ming patiently explained that jewelry of the Celestial Wolf Corps is not cheap. Bringing it from the underground energy warehouse to the beach on the surface must have led to a lot of fighting along the way. But he must have noticed the marks on a backpack and determined that it was a backpack of wealth that everyone was fighting over. That's why he took action. This guy's eyes are quite sharp. Then what if you try to steal your backpack? Dai, he tilted her head. The fragrance of her shoulder-length hair wafted over. Ding Ming felt a little unnatural. He raised his hand to pick up the calming tea on the coffee table. "I definitely wouldn't have let him get his hands on it," Dai said, "but you let him steal King of Nightmare's backpack." Ding Ming laughed. "I have no interest in those things. Even if I had stolen them, it would have been useless. I feel that this calming tea is more useful than those things." Dai laughed as well. She recalled the time when they had just arrived at Meteor City. Ding Ming had asked King of Nightmares for 50 cups of calming tea. At the time, she had felt that Ding Ming was uncouth, but now that she thought about it, she felt that Ding Ming was very cute. This smile was completely different from her usual strange smile. Her pure white teeth were exposed, and her bright cheeks had dimples. Even her eyebrows had become lively. This smiling face was very beautiful. It presented a kind of warm and sunny beauty. Ding Ming couldn't help but feel a little dazed. This was the first time he had truly noticed that Dai Yi's profile was actually quite attractive. No wonder those mercenary leaders were lusting after her. The temperament of a natural beauty was really attractive. However, Dai Yi's heartbeat quickened and her face heated up. She quickly lowered her head and looked at the coffee table. Other than the dazzling gold backpack, There was also Ding Meng's usual ancient sword and the T-shaped claw knife. The light source in the room was the cold white light emitted by the crystal panel on the wall. This made the dark golden claw knife look even more strange under the white light. It lay there quietly. The twisted arc of the knife seemed to show a struggling momentum. It had a cold and mysterious temperament, making it hard for people to look away. He gently picked up the claw knife and gently stroked it. Ah, there's a word on it. It's 8. This is your surname. Ding Meng nodded. It's my knife. You just haven't seen it before. Ever since Chu Shaoqing gave him the ancient sword, the T-shaped claw blade was rarely used. It wasn't that he had abandoned it. It was just that the ancient sword was filled with krypton and was extremely sharp. It was very effective against things like mechas and battle armors. Dai obviously liked this knife. She played with it in her hand. Ding Meng, look, doesn't this knife look like a pendant? If you wrap it with a better material, I think it looks much better than those expensive jewelry. As she spoke, she put the claw knife in front of her chest and gestured. Look, doesn't it look like a necklace? Ding Meng laughed. Miss Dai, you're the first person to say it looks like a necklace. Doesn't it look like one? Dai tilted her head and twisted her neck as if she was looking for a suitable position to hang the claw knife in front of her chest. Ding Meng sighed. It doesn't look like a necklace when it kills people. Do you know how many strong enemies it has killed? Only a straight man like Ding Meng would say something like this. Fortunately, the person he met was Dai Yi. Dai Yi laughed. I'm not afraid. As long as it's something Ding Meng uses, I like it. Ding Meng laughed. These things of mine are all lethal weapons. It's better if you don't like them. Little rascal couldn't take it anymore. Ding Meng is an idiot and a retard. She was clearly being sarcastic. She was clearly saying that she likes you. Girls are all very reserved. You can't expect her to say it out loud, right? Will it kill you to take the initiative? Shout AI didn't say agree this time. She switched to her screen in Ding Meng's field of vision and hung a piece of wallpaper on it. On the wallpaper was Little Rascal's profile picture. Little Rascal was wearing a pair of reading glasses and picking her nose. Little Rascal was furious. What are you doing? Are you trying to copy that four-eyed Russian guy? Do you believe that I can short-circuit your system? Xiao AI was also getting impatient. Can you keep quiet? Every time it's an important moment, you jump out and cause trouble. Little Rascal said, How am I causing trouble? Xiao AI said, Can't you see that a CT5570 is picking up girls? Little Rascal was shocked. Damn, Xiao AI. You actually know the word picking up girls? I always thought that you were a boring guy. Xiao AI said proudly. Sometimes, even I'm scared of my own learning speed. Little Rascal laughed and said, I'm scared of your bragging speed. Come, let's talk. Xiao AI was speechless. While the two of them were arguing in private, Ding Meng was lost in thought as he stared at the claw blade. Seeing him in deep thought, Dai Yi's curiosity was piqued again. Ding Meng, this knife of yours must have an origin, right? Ding Meng was a little surprised. You can tell. Dai Yi's eyes flashed. This knife seems to be made from a material like dark gold. Ding Meng nodded. That's right. Dai Yi continued. I know that in the Holy Grail Federation and the Norse Empire, many special metals are very difficult to produce. This dark gold is one of them, but it's said that it's made using a very special method. There are very few mineral resources in the Devouring Realm, and they don't have this kind of raw material. They're all found in outer space. Ding Meng was truly surprised. You know a lot. Dai Yi's lips curled up again when she heard his praise. I'm thinking that this knife might have come here from the Devouring Realm. After such a long journey, it must have experienced a lot along the way. She was undoubtedly curious about Ding Meng's past. Ding Meng could only nod silently. Yes, this knife does have its origin. Dai Yi asked curiously. Can you tell me where it came from? Ding Meng picked up the cup and took a sip of the calming tea. He sighed and said, This knife was given to me by a very important person. Dai Yi hesitated. A very important person? She was a little nervous, but she didn't dare to ask if this important person was a man or a woman. At this time, even Little Rascal stopped making a fuss and pricked up her ears to listen carefully. Her curiosity about this knife was no less than Dai Yi's. Back then, no matter how she asked Ding Ming, he wouldn't say anything. Now, for the first time, Ding Ming took the initiative to speak. This knife was given to me by a big brother. Dai, he let out a sigh of relief. Fortunately, it was a man and not a woman. However, she was even more curious. Is it your biological big brother? Ding Ming shook his head. No, Dai, he asked. Then why do you call him big brother? Ding Ming said, because everyone calls him that. Dai, he was puzzled. Doesn't he have a name? Ding Ming sighed. He has a name, but the name Big Brother is more meaningful. Actually, the name isn't important. What's important is this knife. Dai, he held the knife in the center of her palm. What kind of knife is this? Ding Ming suddenly raised his head and looked at the crystal window. There was no starry sky outside. The outer space was pitch black and deep. However, his gaze seemed to pass through a very long time and fell into the depths of a distant memory. Chapter 198. It was true that the eldest brother did not have a name. If a person was born without a name, they were usually born in a remote and backward place. The village the eldest brother came from was such a place. It was not even appropriate to call a village. It should be called a tribe. The so-called tribe was a simple and crude shantytown with dozens of families living here. It was surrounded by mountains, and there were more than a dozen villages like this in the mountains. The villagers had been gathering star-weave grass in the mountains for generations because it was the only thing in the mountains. Even ordinary beasts were hard to come by. The star-weave grass was not an expensive item. Its only use was that it could be broken down and added to various types of clothing to produce colorful effects. Therefore, the biggest characteristic of these villages was that they were poor. It could be said that they were desperately poor, and desperately poor did not mean that they were too poor, but that they could really kill people. The eldest brother knew what it felt like to be hungry from a young age. He saw stars and felt weak in his limbs. Sometimes, he could not even stand up. At that time, the eldest brother's biggest wish was to eat a full meal. Even if he could not, he would be satisfied with a few wild sprouts. However, to get food, he had to gather star-weave grass with his bare hands. Then, he had to walk to the city to sell it. It would take a few days of hard work to get a small bag of flour from a merchant. His eldest brother was the same as the other villagers. He learned how to do this when he was very young. He worked hard and supported himself, day after day, year after year. If it wasn't for that chance encounter, his eldest brother might have spent his ordinary life like this. On the way back from a peddling trip, his eldest brother picked up a small twisted knife. It was his T-shaped claw knife. Both sides of the blade were engraved with small handwriting. He did not know who had left it by the roadside. With this knife, the eldest brother had a much easier time gathering star-weave grass. The star-weave grass itself contained a slight amount of poison and was tough enough to cut hands. If the collector was not careful, he could easily get hurt. However, with this knife, everything became much easier. Therefore, the eldest brother's harvest was much higher than the others. The food he sold also increased. At least, he did not have to go hungry anymore. As time passed, Big Brother slowly accumulated some savings. He went to the city to find a merchant to buy a sharper hoe. With half the effort, the hoe was slowly upgraded to a sharper large cleaver. Like many children who were gradually growing up, the eldest brother's biggest wish was no longer to be satisfied with a full meal. Instead, he longed to leave the mountains and explore the outside world. He wanted to see the prosperity of this world. He was determined to become an origin ability user and create an earth-shattering undertaking. One day, his name would be known throughout the kingdom, and the people of the kingdom would know his name. Before he left, his eldest brother simply packed up the goods and valuables in the shack. He was going to take most of the things to the city and sell them. That way, he could at least get some money for the journey. But late that night, a fierce mountain fire erupted. Once the star-weave grass was set ablaze, it would be very difficult to extinguish it in a short period of time. The eldest brother was tired and slept too deeply. When he woke up, the village was completely surrounded by raging fire. Just when he was ready to die, someone rushed in with 2 wet animal blankets and carried him out in the blinding fire. The person who saved him was his neighbor, Huzi. Huzi was also a child, and just like his eldest brother, he lived a hard life of gathering. After his eldest brother woke up, he thanked Huzi profusely. Before he left, he decided to gift the claw blade to Huzi. Big Brother thought that since he no longer needed the claw, rather than selling it for money, he might as well give it to those who truly needed it. Huzi, however, was even more grateful. He said that he had saved his eldest brother not because he wanted the claw, but because he would make good use of the claw and help the villagers. He would do his best to give everyone a better life. In the future, he would wait for his eldest brother to become successful and come back to meet him. And so, Big Brother left the village. Big Brother worked hard from a young age, and his physical fitness was far superior to others. At the age of 16, he awakened his origin ability. In addition, his luck was very good. He met a martial arts training partner in the city's martial arts training plaza and was helped into a martial arts training school. Big Brother cherished this rare opportunity. He studied hard and cultivated diligently, and at the age of 22, he became an advanced origin ability user. Big Brother's 26th birthday was celebrated at the school's honor ceremony. He was awarded a medal and became a true origin ability warrior. At the age of 28, Big Brother chose to join a large sect that was at the peak of its power. The sect elders favored him very much. Although Big Brother's talent was not very good, he was steadfast, hardworking, and loyal. At the age of 34, Big Brother was promoted to an advanced warrior. In order to gain experience and honor, the sect sent Big Brother and 2 other advanced disciples to the kingdom's front lines to fight against the enemy forces. When he was 38 years old, the enemy's army pressed on the border. Under the ferocious attack, the other 2 disciples were martyred on the battlefield. However, the eldest brother survived with great difficulty. This was different from what he had thought at the time, because he was not famous. Life in the army was undoubtedly long and boring. Other than going into battle to kill the enemy, he returned to cultivate. At the age of 42, Big Brother became an origin ability warrior and was already an indispensable member of the army. However, at this time, the front lines were defeated, and the enemy's army crossed the border and headed straight for the kingdom's main city. Big Brother retreated with the defeated army. However, on the way, they were chased by the enemy. In order to protect the civilians of more than 20 villages at the border, Big Brother led his people to block the enemy's main line. This battle was extremely tragic. The enemy lost 30,000 people, and Big Brother's 50,000 people were all wiped out. In the end, he was the only one left fighting a bloody battle. Big Brother was captured by the enemy vanguard and brought back to the army to be tortured for 3 whole months. However, Big Brother was stubborn and strong, and he endured for 3 months. Half a year later, the enemy's higher-ups visited the front lines. It was actually a delicate little girl. After the little girl asked about the whole story, she gave the order to treat the captives well and return their freedom. After returning to the kingdom, Big Brother fought on the front lines for another 8 years. After countless life and death battles, he miraculously survived and advanced to become an advanced level warrior. Big Brother spent his 51st birthday in battle. When Big Brother was 60 years old, the war between the 2 countries reached its climax. However, as the kingdom's army continued to pour in, the enemy gradually could not hold on and started to retreat. Big Brother finally stepped into the ranks of the combat masters. However, it was a pity that he still did not become famous. This was because the top 10 people on the front lines were not allowed to be captives. When Big Brother was 65 years old, the 2 countries temporarily stopped fighting. Big Brother returned to the sect, and the sect welcomed him back with the highest courtesy. He became an elder and enjoyed unprecedented rich cultivation resources. Big Brother's strength began to increase by leaps and bounds. When Big Brother was 72 years old, the enemy country invaded again. The sect was in danger, and Big Brother stepped into the front lines again. At this time, Big Brother was already an intermediate-level warrior. The sect prestige was extremely high, but very few people knew about him. When Big Brother was 75 years old, the enemy country was completely defeated. After many years of war, the kingdom finally won the long-awaited peace. The sect was received by the royal family and was awarded a medal by the king. However, the person who went to receive the medal was not Big Brother. Instead, the sect leader personally went to the capital of the kingdom. Big Brother could only wait patiently outside the city. When the sect leader returned, he brought a woman with him. He said that she was the princess of the enemy country. However, she was now a defeated captive and was rewarded to the sect by the king. Big Brother found out that the princess was actually the little girl who had released him on the battlefield many years ago. The little girl had already grown up. She was slender and beautiful. The sect leader wanted to take her for himself and then behead her. However, Big Brother remembered the princess's kindness of not killing him back then. That night, he righteously saved her. The sect leader was injured, but Big Brother was severely injured. Big Brother covered the princess and escaped to the border of the other country. The sect leader was furious and ordered Big Brother to be expelled from the sect. He reported to the royal family and was convicted as a traitor. He was wanted nationwide. The pursuers chased him all the way to the border. The princess's friends from other countries came to help and successfully escaped. However, Big Brother was unwilling to leave the kingdom. He said that if he escaped with the princess, he would really be a traitor. He wanted to go back and prove that not only was he innocent, but that one day he would soar into the sky and become famous. Big Brother began to hide from the pursuers' encirclement at the border. This entanglement lasted for 7 years. Big Brother survived by relying on his survival skills from many years of fighting on the battlefield. Moreover, when he was 82 years old, he finally broke through the natural barrier of an intermediate combat master and became an advanced combat master. At this point, Big Brother entered middle age and ushered in the peak of his life's cultivation. However, he still did not become famous. Or rather, his fame was a bad reputation. The people of the kingdom would not respect him and would only despise him. When Big Brother was 85 years old, the king of the kingdom passed away and a new king took over. A series of changes followed. The original sect was expelled from the royal family's line of sight. All of the captives were released, and the new king adopted a policy of friendship and peace with other countries. This year, the princess returned to the kingdom and finally found Big Brother in the forest at the border of the kingdom. The princess escorted Big Brother to the kingdom's capital to meet the new king. The king respected Big Brother's righteousness and was also moved by the princess's deep affection. He immediately declared Big Brother innocent. When Big Brother was 86 years old, he married the princess. The two of them settled down in the main city at the border of the kingdom. Their lives were very peaceful. Apart from accompanying his wife, Big Brother did not slow down his pace of cultivation. Because there had been no war for many years, the people lived in peace and contentment. The kingdom held the martial arts symposium every 5 years as scheduled. Not only would the experts of the kingdom participate, but origin energy experts from other countries would also come. Big Brother naturally did not want to miss this event. It was more for the sake of his desire to become famous. Now that he was an origin energy general, he was confident that he could defeat all the experts. He was not willing to live an ordinary life. Although he had already been cleared of his crimes, he had not been happy in the days after his marriage. Seeing that he was always silent and gloomy, the princess had a strange idea. She wanted to go to Big Brother's hometown and take a look. Perhaps returning to a hometown that she had not seen for a long time would improve her mood. Big Brother naturally agreed and took his wife home. Chapter 199. In the depths of the mountains, the dark blue star-woven grass was woven together like waves of wheat dancing in the wind. When the sun shone down, it was like a sea of blue. After so many years, this place seemed to have not changed at all. It was still so remote and poor, even though the princess felt that the scenery here was very beautiful. If there were any changes in this place, it would be that the original shanty town had become bigger. Dozens of families had become hundreds of families. Everyone no longer lived in shanty towns because there were already small bungalows next to the harvesting site, and they were built quite beautifully. The villagers still relied on harvesting for a living, but at least now every family had all kinds of sharp cutting tools. There were also simple transport vehicles on the roads. Most importantly, everyone no longer had to work so hard, and they no longer had to suffer from the cold and hunger. It was also at this time that the scenes of his childhood surfaced in the elder brother's mind. He remembered Huzi, who had recklessly rushed into the fire to carry him out, but he did not find Huzi. What he found was an old grave. The grave was built under a star-woven tree at the foot of the mountain. The tombstone was not made of wood, but of rough stone slabs. The elder brother remembered this place. Back then, he and Huzi had personally planted the saplings. Now, the saplings had grown into towering trees, but Huzi was no longer here. After so many years of wind and rain, most of the words on the tombstone were blurred, but one could still vaguely make out the words grave of Huzi. For a moment, the elder brother sighed. Although he knew that origin ability users lived much longer than ordinary people, he had heard from the elders in the village that Huzi had died at the age of 20. The reason was that the people from nearby villages had come to occupy the harvesting site. In order to protect the children in the village, Huzi had unfortunately been stabbed and killed in a fight with the villagers. Huzi was the same as him. He did not even have a surname. He did not have a name when he was alive, and he did not have a name after he died. If not for the words on the tombstone, no one would know that a young man named Huzi was buried under the tombstone. Big Brother gently stroked the tombstone, feeling dejected. In the end, Huzi didn't wait for the day when he came back to see him. Even if he came back today, he didn't succeed. He struggled his whole life. But in the end, he still had this kind of inexplicable hesitation and confusion. After leaving the graveyard, the eldest brother was preparing to head to the capital of the kingdom. As he passed by the harvesting area, he suddenly saw the figure of a girl dressed in rags under the sunlight. She was skillfully harvesting the starweed grass. He was very familiar with this movement of lowering his head and swiping the grass, because he had experienced it before. Big Brother was touched by the scene and couldn't help but step forward and ask, "Hello." The girl was about 12 or 13 years old. Her skin was dark, and her hands were thick and coarse. However, there was a cheerful smile on her face. It was obvious that she did not mind doing such hard work. The Big Brother looked at her hand. "Hello, little girl. Can you let me take a look at your knife?" The girl hesitated, but still handed the knife to him. When the dark gold knife fell into the palm of his hand, the blood in the Big Brother's body suddenly boiled. He felt that it looked familiar and wondered if he had seen wrongly. But now he finally saw it clearly. In the center of the front of the knife, there was a small D character. On the other side of the knife, there was also a line of exquisite words. What fortune is there in gathering? What sorrow is there in parting? What joy is there in life? What bitterness is there in death? This knife was the claw knife he had personally given to Huzi when he left this place. He didn't expect it to still be here. Big Brother forcibly suppressed the excitement in his heart. "Little girl, where did you get this knife?" The girl smiled. Her smile was happy and proud. "This was given to me by a Big Brother." Big Brother was stunned. "Big Brother? Which Big Brother?" The girl smiled. "Yes, Big Brother. Not just anyone, but everyone who has used this knife is called Big Brother." "Why?" The Big Brother was curious. The girl stopped smiling and said seriously, "They all said that this knife was left behind by a hero many years ago. It has been passed down for many generations. The first person who used this knife was called Big Brother. Big Brother said that this knife must be left to those who really need it. They must protect it, use it, and love it. Every generation of the owner of this knife has fought for everyone, worked hard, and protected everyone. They all lived up to the trust and inheritance of the previous owner. No matter who obtains this knife, they must shoulder their own responsibility and mission and bravely walk down the path." The girl described it endlessly, but the Big Brother's eyes were wet at this moment. He remembered Huzi's promise to him before he left that year. He would definitely use this knife to help the people in the village and do his best to let everyone live a good life. Hu Zi must have done it. He was not sure about the people who came after him, but he believed that every successor must be like Hu Zi, leaving it to those who really needed it. That big brother would definitely do his best to fight for it. The big brother did not expect that his casual action back then would be praised as a heroic deed by the people here. This knife was really passed down from generation to generation and was given such a noble and profound meaning. At this moment, the big brother could not help but think about his life. What I've been doing all this time? What I've been doing is nothing more than cultivating, and then killing. I thought this was the so-called hard work and struggle. I have been fighting and killing for 80 years. The so-called success and recognition, the so-called great goal, now seems like a joke. Am I not even as good as this girl in front of me? Am I too far away from Hu Zi and the others? At this moment, all of the big brother's confusion and hesitation disappeared. He controlled his emotions and returned the knife to the girl. Little girl, may I ask what your name is? The girl seemed even happier. My surname is Ding. My name is Ding Wenhe. Uncle, you can call me Wenhe. The big brother also laughed. Miss Wenhe, you don't need to call me uncle. Just call me big brother. Big brother? Ding Wenhe was startled. She seemed to think of something and said in surprise, "This is the first time I've seen you in the village. You can't be that big brother." The big brother laughed and interrupted her. "I'm definitely not. I'm actually very envious of you. Your surname is Ding, and you just happened to get this knife. Perhaps one day I will also have a knife like this. Perhaps this knife will become famous and become the glory of the kingdom." Half a year later, the martial arts conference was held as scheduled in the Royal Martial Arts Practice Square of the kingdom's capital. A total of 12,000 origin ability users from 5 different countries gathered together to share in this grand event. The competition was very simple. If you felt that you were not careless, you could directly go to the battle stage in the square. If you're knocked off the stage, you would lose. The one who remained standing at the end would be the strongest. There was only one rule: don't overdo it. The rewards offered by the kingdom were also very generous. Of course, origin ability users themselves were not lacking in worldly possessions such as money. What everyone really valued was the glory of being the strongest esper. Once you become famous and reach the top, the whole world would know about it. This was the last day of the grand event. Not only was there a sea of people in the martial arts practice square, but in the distant spectator stands, the nobles of the royal family and the influential figures of the sex were all present. They were all waiting for the appearance of the strongest origin ability user. This time, there were only 2 people who were the most popular. One was the kingdom's Tianqing. This person had made countless contributions during the long war with the enemy country. He had a solid foundation and rich experience. He was a light speed type origin ability user and was a battle monarch. The other person was Yu Xingyang from the Devil Country. This person was also not ordinary. He was a thermal type battle monarch who had risen rapidly in recent years. The phaseless divine blade in his hand was said to be a sharp weapon specially made from rare extraterrestrial materials. Both of them had defeated numerous opponents and eliminated a large number of experts to enter the final battle. At this time, the ceremonial officer had already rung the bell in the square, signaling the start of the battle. The battle stage was suspended in the center of the square. It could be clearly seen from all directions. The 2 figures did not walk up the slanted stairs, but instead floated up. Their strength was obviously very high. Tianqing had long been ready. The long sword in his hand trembled slightly, and a beautiful sword flower appeared. He was the host, and his battle experience was unmatched. He was also favored by the royal family. He was filled with confidence that he would win this battle. In comparison, Yu Xingyang looked very young, but he was more mature. He crossed his arms and hugged the phaseless divine blade to his chest. He did not even unsheath it. It was as if he did not put Tianqing in his eyes. Tianqing sneered and said, "I heard that the phaseless divine blade is unmatched in the Devil Country." He asked this because Yu Xingyang had not unsheathed his blade since the start of the competition. The only time it was unsheathed was when he defeated the kingdom's genius by Ping Hai in the last round. It was normal for Bai Ping Hai to lose. After all, he was too young and his level was too low. However, Yu Xingyang defeated him with just one slash. This kind of strength was truly terrifying. As for that Azure Blade, he had repeatedly studied it these past few days. Unfortunately, he hadn't been able to find any gist of it. Now that he was so aggressive in his questioning, it was nothing more than the same old trick to gain the upper hand in terms of momentum. Unexpectedly, not only did Yu Xingyang not fall for it, he even checkmated him. I'm afraid that from today onwards, the phaseless divine blade will be unmatched in the 5 nations. Tianqing sneered even more. Then let me see if there's really no one who can match up to you. As soon as he finished speaking, he quickly disappeared. He did not really disappear. Instead, many invisible mirrors formed around Yu Xingyang. The mirror image that appeared was actually Yu Xingyang himself. Just this move alone caused the hundreds of thousands of spectators to cry out in surprise. This was the simultaneous release of Phantom, Transient Step, and Afterimage. These 3 martial arts were the most basic martial arts of the Lightspeed series. However, their level was so high that ordinary Origin ability users could only look at them in the dust. Afterimage could create dozens of doppelgangers, and each doppelganger had Yu Xingyang's appearance. Phantom of the Phantom had already reached a stage where the naked eye could not recognize it. As for transient steps, each doppelganger could rapidly teleport. The effect of these 3 martial skills was like a transparent sphere that completely enveloped Yu Xingyang. Everyone opened their eyes wide in curiosity. How was Yu Xingyang going to deal with this? Chapter 200. Yu Xingyang did not move. At this moment, he actually closed his eyes. An expert should know that he was not underestimating his opponent, but trying to sense his opponent's true body. Phantom of the Phantom itself could not be identified, and transient steps was too fast, so it could only be sensed through the fluctuations in the air. However, Tianqing had used Afterimage to connect Origin energy and the fluctuations in the air together, so it was impossible to sense her location. When a martial arts technique was trained to this level, it could be said to be invulnerable. Thus, Yu Xingyang closed his eyes. He wanted to use his heart to sense, to find the slightest flaw in his opponent's rapid movements. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The air flowed faster and faster. Before, it was like a transparent sphere, but now it was like a light mist. Suddenly, all the air and mist disappeared. The audience could no longer see anything. They could only see several dozen beams of light. The swords turned into several dozen swords, stabbing at Su Chun from all directions. One sword turned into several dozen swords, and the several dozen sword were actually one sword. It was like a rainbow of lightning in the sky. For many Origin Energy users, to be able to see such a magnificent scene, they could say that they had no regrets in life. Yu Xingyang finally moved. He suddenly opened his eyes, which were filled with fighting spirit. With a clang, the divine saber was unsheathed. It was said to be formless, but it had a form. Yu Xingyang waved his hand toward the sky. The sword shadows that filled the sky turned into nothingness, and all the beautiful light dissipated. This was a very standard, very clear, and very ordinary saber strike. Even a young ruler on the spectator stands who did not understand martial arts could see it clearly. Even a child of a few years old would be able to execute it. However, being able to execute it was one thing, and being able to block it was another. In Tianqing's vision, he could not see the saber clearly. The saber seemed to be very clear, but the saber seemed to be faintly discernible and untraceable. The saber had truly achieved great skill without any effort, as if it was formed by nature. At this moment, Tianqing's true body had appeared. He stood in front of Yu Xingyang, his sword still in his hand. However, the clothes on his shoulder had been cut open. With another clang, the saber was sheathed. Tianqing let out a long sigh and bowed slightly to Yu Xingyang. Many thanks. Yu Xingyang also bowed in return. Many thanks. Tianqing thanked Yu Xingyang for showing mercy, while Yu Xingyang thanked him for going easy on them. Both of them were heroes who appreciated each other's talents. At this moment, the audience burst into applause. Yu Xingyang raised his non-phased divine blade. Ignoring the cheers of the entire audience, he shouted loudly, "I wonder if this blade of mine is considered the #1 blade in the world this year?" No one answered him, because there was no need to answer. He was the greatest king of this event, and this result had already been decided. What if he was not? Who else could it be? But he still had to ask, "I wonder if this saber of mine is considered the best saber in the world this year?" This time, he turned to face the spectator stand and asked the monarch. The young monarch's face was gloomy at this moment. The highest honor had been taken away by an expert from another country. He felt ashamed, but he had to admit defeat since his skills were inferior. "I wonder if this saber of mine is considered the #1 saber in the world this year?" This was Yu Xingyang's last question. His voice was particularly sonorous because he raised his head to the sky, as if he was not asking a person, but questioning the heavens. "I've trained hard for so many years. Do I deserve this kind of honor?" At this moment, an unfamiliar and deep voice finally answered him. "No." The audience burst into an uproar. Looking towards the direction of the voice, a figure appeared at the entrance of the martial arts arena. This person was dressed in plain clothes and walked towards the battle arena unhurriedly. The ceremonial officer was about to stop him, but he was stopped by the monarch's gaze. However, there were strange gazes all around. This person was dressed normally, and there were no fluctuations on his body. There was only a very ordinary military feather spirit saber at his waist. Could it be that this guy was not convinced and wanted to embarrass himself? Big Brother appeared to be very calm. Under the questioning and mocking gazes, he silently walked onto the battle arena and stood in front of Yu Xingyang. It was completely different from the previous battle with Tianqing. Not only did Yu Xingyang not underestimate Big Brother, but he also stared at his opponent's feather spirit saber. This saber was obviously a weapon used by the frontline soldiers of the kingdom. Although it was incomparably sharp, compared to the phaseless saber, this saber was far too inferior. Yu Xingyang revealed a serious expression. "I still haven't asked for your name." "I don't have a name," Big Brother replied quietly. "If you must know my name, you can call me Big Brother." "Big Brother?" Yu Xingyang's eyes widened. The audience burst into laughter. In the 5 great kingdoms, who was worthy of being called Big Brother by Yu Xingyang? Was this person crazy? The monarch silently looked at Big Brother. He knew that Big Brother was a warrior of the kingdom, but he did not understand why Big Brother wanted to go on stage. He also did not think that Big Brother was qualified to be Yu Xingyang's opponent. However, Yu Xingyang did not laugh. Instead, he became even more vigilant. "Please make your move." Big Brother did not stand on ceremony. With a clang, he unsheathed his saber. His moves were exactly the same as Yu Xingyang's, drawing the saber, backhand, and forward slashing. It was clean and neat, without any fancy moves. It was also a clear-cut saber, and everyone could see it clearly. It was also erratic and unpredictable, and no one could block it. Clang! The phaseless saber fell to the ground. The audience was dead silent. All the mockery and doubts turned into shock and astonishment in an instant. This nameless person only used one move to shake off the saber in Yu Xingyang's hand. What kind of terrifying cultivation was this? Yu Xingyang's face was pale. His teeth were even trembling because he did not dare to believe this. Big Brother was still calm. "Do you still think that this saber of yours is the best saber in the world?" Yu Xingyang gritted his teeth and said, "There is no problem with the saber itself. It's just that I didn't expect you to be a champion." He was still young, and he wasn't convinced. His Big Brother had used a more profound origin ability to shake off his weapon, and not a martial technique or blade technique to defeat him. That was why he retorted like this. If it was really an origin ability user of the same level, and one was holding a phaseless divine blade, while the other was also holding a phaseless divine blade, the result of this battle might be different. Big Brother suddenly laughed. I know that you are not convinced, but I want to tell you that this saber of mine is also not worthy of the honor of being the best saber in the world. Yu Xingyang was stunned. The audience was also stunned. The nobles and the spectator stands began to whisper to each other. Only the king looked at him meaningfully. Yu Xingyang could not help but ask, "If you are not worthy, then who is?" Big Brother laughed again. "There is one person whose saber is worthy of the honor of being the best saber in the world this year." Yu Xingyang frowned. "May I ask who this expert is?" Big Brother suddenly waved at the crowd below the stage. "Miss Wenhe, please come up to the stage." Ding Wenhe, dressed in tattered clothes, excitedly ran up to the stage and stood between the two of them. She excitedly said, "Big Brother, you are truly amazing. You actually defeated the #1 expert of the martial arts symposium. You are the pride of the entire kingdom." Big Brother smiled at her and said, "Miss Wenhe, please hand over your hero's dagger to me." Ding Wenhe was stunned for a moment, but he still took out the dark, golden, T-shaped claw knife from his dirty shirt pocket. Big Brother raised the blade and said to the audience in a loud voice, "This blade is worthy of being the best saber in the world this year." The audience was once again in an uproar. Many of the people present were experts, and they could tell at a glance that this was just an ordinary claw blade. Not to mention the phaseless saber. Even the hoes sold on the market were much stronger than this blade. Big Brother lowered his head and stroked the blade. He used origin energy to speak to the audience, his voice filled with sadness and nostalgia. "This blade has to cut 5 bundles of starweave grass every day." The audience below the stage immediately roared with laughter. "My blade can cut 100 bundles of grass every day without a problem. That kind of blade is probably only fit to cut grass. Can that blade kill people? Can that be called a blade? I think it's more like a razor blade." Ding Wenhe seemed very uneasy when she heard these jeers. Her face flushed red, and she lowered her head. But Big Brother didn't seem to mind. He lovingly stroked the blade, his voice filled with emotion. "These 5 bundles of starweave grass have to be carried on your back and walked for 2 days and 2 nights to deliver to the border city to be sold." Yu Xingyang also looked at the dagger, a thoughtful look in his eyes. Big Brother continued speaking, but his tone was firm and forceful. "At the city's marketplace, these 5 bundles of grass can only be exchanged for 90 coins. The audience was still in an uproar, but the voices were much quieter now. Big Brother said in a low voice, "Of these 90 coins, after paying the booth fee and transaction tax, there are only 72 coins left." At this moment, the noise died down, and many people began to listen carefully. Big Brother continued, "These 72 coins can only be used to buy a small bag of flour from the booth at the city gate." No one questioned him anymore, because everyone present was either a member of the royal family or a hero of a region. Who would care about a mere 70 coins? How could these high and mighty nobles know the painful lives of the people at the bottom? They were well-fed and would never worry about food or drink, and they would never eat something like flour. Big Brother scanned the audience and said in a low voice, "This small bag of flour is used to support the 11 orphans and widows in her village on the border. In these 8 years, no matter if it was winter or winter, wind, frost, rain or snow, no matter if it was war or plague, it has never stopped." The audience suddenly fell silent. Only then did Big Brother face the monarch, his expression stern. He asked in a loud voice, "May I ask your majesty, can this blade be considered the best blade in the world this year?" The young monarch exhaled a long breath and shouted sternly, "In this year's martial arts symposium, is there anyone who thinks that their blade is better than this girl's blade? Please step forward." The audience burst into thunderous applause. Almost tens of thousands of people stood up and applauded at the same time. "No, no, no." Yu Xingyang also looked at the dark golden T-shaped claw blade, bowed, and clasped his hands. "I am ignorant." Thanks to Big Brother Ming's reminder, this is the real best blade in the world. I have learned a lot. Chapter 201. Phew. Dai raised her head and let out a long sigh. She no longer felt like this saber was a necklace. She felt like she was holding a priceless treasure in her hands. Little rascal couldn't help but sigh. No wonder Ding Ming said that this saber was given to him by someone very important. It turns out that this saber has been through so much. Dai turned her head. Ding Ming was still in a daze. She couldn't help but ask, now that this saber is in your hands, I must be shouldering a new mission? Ding Ming nodded silently. Every owner of this saber has never let down their predecessors. I am no exception. Dai said, did the previous generation's big brother pass it to you? Ding Ming hesitated. Yes, Dai said. What does he want you to do? Ding Ming picked up the cup gently and didn't say anything again. Dai curled her lips helplessly and sighed. Cousin Ding Ming, no matter what you want to do, I will support you. I believe in you and support you. I can go with you. Ding Ming smiled. Miss Dai, if you follow a galactic refugee like me, you will encounter all kinds of danger at any time. The Holy Grail Federation is where you should really stay. Dai immediately retorted, I am not afraid of danger. Ding Ming's tone was a little cold. No one is afraid of danger, but danger is danger. Dai sighed helplessly. All right, I will listen to you. Ding Ming's tone softened slightly. The Marshal has already contacted the assault mercenary group. A new fleet will come to the periphery of the E-System Nebula. Miss Dai, you can take a spaceship back to the Green Arrow group. Captain Gulaga and the others will definitely send you back to the Federation safely. Dai was silent. The atmosphere in the room suddenly became a little tense. After an unknown period of time, Dai sighed and mustered up the courage to speak. Ding Ming. Ding Ming was a little confused. Dai blushed. She lowered her head and said softly, Ding Ming, I actually like you a little. She did not dare to raise her head to look at Ding Ming. She was afraid that he would reject her. Ding Ming was stunned and sighed. If Dai was afraid of rejection, then Ding Ming didn't even know how to reject. Little rascal finally couldn't hold it in any longer and said, Hurry up and say yes to her, you idiot Ding Ming. Once you say yes to her, do it right away. I'm really worried about you. Before, you didn't dare to look at her, and you didn't dare to touch her. This time, you can openly look and touch her. Shut up, little naughty. Ding Ming reprimanded. That's right, be quiet. Xiao AI also reprimanded him. Why are you interrupting at such a critical moment? Little rascal turned his head in dissatisfaction. In the face of Dai Yi's shyness, Ding Ming's expression softened a lot. He looked at her and said quietly, Thank you, Miss Dai. Really? Dai Yi's lips curled up again. Why are you just thanking me? Ding Ming said, I'm sincerely thanking you. You think highly of me. Dai was a little dissatisfied. So what if you're a galactic refugee? Ding Ming, if you join the Holy Grail Federation, I guarantee that your citizenship will be taken care of. That's not what I meant. Ding Ming smiled and sighed. I just feel very lucky and happy. People like us are already very satisfied to be able to gain your favor. Dai might not be able to understand what he meant. Ding Ming was not only feeling emotional about himself, but he also kept thinking about Xinjie. He always felt that he and Xinjie were the same kind of people. Their lives were very hard, and being able to stay alive was a very luxurious thing. As for friendship and love, they would never dream of it. However, to his surprise, Dai actually understood part of what he meant. She even took the initiative to place her hand on the back of Ding Ming's hand. I know you promised Nightmare to help him, so you'll still be busy for a while, right? Ding Ming did not resist this time. His other hand also held Dai Yi's fair and smooth hand. I also have more important things to do. Dai seemed to remember something. By the way, Ding Ming, will you be joining the Federation in the future? Faced with her passionate and expectant gaze, Ding Ming pondered for a moment before nodding slowly and firmly. Miss Dai, if I'm free, I'll definitely come to the Federation to look for you. Please don't worry. After getting an affirmative answer, Dai jumped up happily. She did not even care that Ding Ming was covered in dirt. She held Ding Ming's forehead and gently kissed it. Then she walked out the door with a flushed face. Cousin Ding-Ming, I'm going back to my room to get some rest. I'll patiently wait for your news. I hope you can come to the Federation soon. Ding-Ming sat on the sofa in a daze. He could not come back to his senses for a long time after Dai kissed him. Little Rascal was finally pleased. What do you think? Xiao Ai was puzzled. What do you mean? Little Rascal said. I dare to make a bet with you. Xiao Ai said, what bet? Little Rascal said, do you believe that Ding-Ming won't wash his hands or face for 3 days after being kissed? Xiao Ai said, I believe you. Ding-Ming. The blazing shark spaceship was still quietly sailing through space, but Pandora's Planet Virus 4 had already appeared on the interstellar map's real-time display. From the outside, it looked like a whirlpool of purplish-black poisonous gas. Nightmare operated the main control console, and the spaceship began to enter the atmosphere. After they had truly entered the atmosphere, the color displayed on the real-time display changed again. The planet was actually a lifeless grayish-white, and the drifting clouds in the sky seemed to have been dyed with a light red hue. Nightmare explained, Planet V4's poison is very strong. It permeates the entire atmosphere, and, at the same time, it's constantly diffusing outwards. That's why it's formed a ring of purple stardust on the periphery. Normal spaceships can't enter at all. Xiao Ai said, she's right. I've detected that the radiation interference here is very strong. It's very strong even for quantum-level communications. Ding-Ming also stared at the screen carefully. He discovered that there were countless dark green objects bouncing around in the clouds in the sky. They were about the size of large shuttles, and even the blazing shark spaceship had to carefully avoid them. Nightmare said, due to the radiation and the force field, the metal ores on the ground are all floating in the air. There's still a certain pattern to their movement. If a spaceship can't grasp the pattern, it'll be very difficult for it to land. Ding-Ming said, isn't this more or less a natural protective measure? Nightmare sighed. When this place was first discovered many years ago, many people died just to study the pattern of movement of these metal balls. He did not say it out loud, but Ding-Ming could still tell that life on the ground was not easy for people. He believed that Nightmare would definitely not survive on this planet alone. The spaceship was still descending, and the color of the ground gradually turned from grayish-white to dark brown. It felt like an endless expanse of scorched earth. The spaceship began to fly close to the ground at a low altitude. Ding-Ming soon saw the true appearance of Planet Poison Hazard. He saw a large expanse of blue-green forest in the distance, filled with volatile energy currents. After the spaceship passed through the forest, it flew for a long time before slowly landing in an open area. The blue-green poison in this area was clearly not as dense as it looked from the outside. In fact, it had been diluted quite a bit. After the connecting hatch opened, a fragrant smell immediately wafted out. Nightmare turned his head and said hesitantly, Mr. Ting, are you okay? Ding-Ming nodded. I'm fine. Xiao Ai's inspection report had already appeared in his field of vision. The air in this area was filled with poisonous gas, but the concentration was much lower than outside of the forest. It was not difficult to explain why Nightmare had waited until the assault fleet had picked up Dai, and the others before coming down. It was because ordinary people would not be able to come down, and even Origin ability users would find it difficult to resist the invasion of the poisonous gas. At this moment, what appeared in front of Ding-Ming was a super big tree that was shaped like a multi-clawed fish. Its entire body was suffused with an icy blue luster. This tree was at least 300 meters tall, and it was completely integrated with the various strange plants around it, as if it had a unique life of its own. Various parts of the tree's branches and trunk were built in the shape of round tents. They looked like rooms, and presumably they were used for people to live in. Ding-Ming scanned the area with his telekinesis vision and was immediately surprised. Not only were there people living in this place, there were quite a few of them. However, there was a strange phenomenon. These people's bodies were very strange, and they did not look like normal people. Their auras were also very different from normal people's. Most of them were sitting or lying down, and they looked very weak. At this time, someone finally ran up from under the tree. "Sister Mengyan, you're finally back." "Sister?" Ding Ming was shocked. Although Nightmare had always appeared in the form of Lu Fei during the journey, Ding Ming never thought that Nightmare's gender was actually a woman. Nightmare replied awkwardly, "I really don't want to hide anything from Mr. Ting. I am indeed a woman, but I am also not a woman." This was really difficult to understand, but Ding Ming did not ask because he was frightened by the scene in front of him. Strictly speaking, this person who ran up could not be called a person at all. This person was very short, like a dwarf, but his head was as big as a bucket, and there were 3 eyes on his bald head. His mouth was completely split open, like the bloody mouth of a tiger or a leopard. The most terrifying thing was below his neck. All the skin was reddish-brown, and it emitted a strong stench like a dried corpse. If this person was not talking, Ding Ming would definitely think that this was a mutated monster from the planet. He suddenly remembered that when Nightmare was fighting Chong Wei on Flying Star City, the body lying on the bed was exactly the same as this person in front of him. Nightmare said apologetically, "I'm sorry, Mr. Ting. I've caused you discomfort." If Ding Ming was here, he would probably vomit on the spot, but what kind of disgusting scene had Ding Ming not seen before? He waved his hand lightly. "It's fine." Nightmare sighed. "Xiao Wei is one of the better-looking ones here. That's why he usually stays on a landing field outside. So this person is called Xiao Wei." Ding Ming nodded and greeted, "Hello." Xiao Wei's 3 eyes rolled around. Obviously, he was very wary of Ding Ming. Nightmare said softly, "Xiao Wei, Mr. Ting is an important guest that I've invited back. Please take me to Annie Shuyan." Xiao Wei extended his hand politely. "All right, Sister Meng Yan. Mr. Ting, please follow me." Chapter 202. In the depths of the forest, Little Wei was walking at a leisurely pace. Ding Ming looked around curiously. These strange plants that were both green and blue gave him a very comfortable feeling. The poisonous gas emitted by these plants didn't cool his limbs like origin energy, but made Ding Ming's mind feel very refreshed and clear. Little Rascal said, "The K-virus can fuse with the various poisons here. It's extremely beneficial to your cultivation. It's like a natural amplification agent." Ding Ming asked curiously, "Oh," Little Rascal said, "but it's extremely harmful to normal people. This place is truly miraculous." Xiao AI suddenly said, "I've detected extremely powerful energy fluctuations." Ding Ming nodded. In truth, he had also sensed it. It hadn't been obvious when they first got off the spaceship, but the energy fluctuations were getting stronger and stronger. The place Little Wei was leading them to seemed to be the source. Xiao AI said, "This is the energy fluctuations of a silver core stone." Little Rascal said, "Really?" Xiao AI sighed and said, "I'm sure that this is a silver core stone. However, the waves of this silver core stone are much weaker than those of ordinary silver core stones. At least, they are much weaker than the one in the Flying Star City." Little Rascal said, "Why is that?" Xiao AI said, "I don't know the reason." While they were discussing, Little Wei finally came to a stop. On a patch of blue grass in the forest, a giant hemispherical tent was embedded in the ground. The tent seemed to be made of all kinds of exotic plants and flowers. It looked like a cactus that was glowing with a blue light. Before they even entered, an old female voice rang out from inside. "Is Lu Yin back?" Meng Yin immediately lowered her head and said respectfully, "Annie Shun, it's me. I've also brought back an important guest. His name is Ding Ming." The woman called Auntie Shuyin spoke again. "Hello, Ding Ming. Welcome to this place." Ding Ming replied in a deep voice, "Hello." As he answered, he secretly activated his origin ability. Ding Ming had only felt this kind of aura from Chu Xiaoqing's driver, Sister Zhong. However, Shuyan's aura was completely different from Sister Zhong's. Sister Zhong's aura was vast and boundless, while Shuyan's aura was sometimes strong and sometimes weak. It was intermittent. There seemed to be a problem with her origin ability cultivation. Unexpectedly, Xue Yin's tone was very gentle. Ding Meng, please don't be nervous. Since Xiaoyan said that you're an honored guest, please come in and sit down for a chat. The facilities in the room couldn't be any simpler. There was a tatami mat, 3 long benches, and a small table. However, these things were all made of plant materials and emitted a colorful glow. The room was filled with a dazzling sense of beauty. Xue Yin sat on the tatami mat with her back to the door. She seemed to be admiring a mural on the wall. This was the only mural in the room that was made of crystal. The mural depicted the head of a man. His face was very young, and he couldn't be considered handsome. However, he gave off a steady, elegant, and upright feeling. Xue Yin seemed to be entranced by the mural. Meng Yan didn't dare to say anything. She and Xiao Wei stood to the side and waited patiently. Ding Meng didn't say anything either. He had always been good at keeping his cool. After a long time, Xue Yin got off the tatami mat and slowly turned around. Ding Meng looked calm, but he was very surprised. It was difficult to tell the age of the woman in front of him from her appearance. She wasn't young, but she wasn't as old as he thought, either. Her hair was still thick, but it was scattered around like reeds. Her hair wasn't black, but it had many different colors. She could barely be considered a beauty because one could still see the elegance and charm of her youth from her face that was full of vicissitudes. She looked similar to a normal human, but there was one thing that was absolutely different, and that was her skin. Her skin was terrifyingly pale. Her face looked like it was covered with a thin layer of paper. It would break with a light poke. That was indeed the case. Her cheekbones, the base of her ears, and chin had a few small holes. 1 or 2 drops of yellow liquid seeped out from them, but it didn't look like pus. Xiao AI was already preparing a report. She's been poisoned very deeply. There's also a problem with her genes. Xue Yin's expression was also slightly surprised. She didn't expect the guest she had invited to be so young. Moreover, he could stand there unscathed without wearing any protective gear. Mutated poison spirit source? Xue Yin asked tentatively. Little Rascal immediately transmitted information to Ding Meng in the consciousness space. Mutated poison spirit source. This is a unique physique for origin ability users. It absorbs all kinds of poisons as a foundation. After cultivating it to a certain level, it's immune to all poisons. However, this physique is innate and not acquired through training or refinement. It's just like how the K-virus chose you. It has a unique compatibility. It's 1 in a million. It was obvious that Ding Meng didn't have this physique, but he couldn't casually reveal the K-virus. He replied, I don't. Xue Yin looked slightly disappointed. At this moment, Meng Yin took 2 steps forward. Aunt Xue Yin, Mr. Ding Meng's blood can neutralize the rank 3 Red Riding Hood in an extremely short amount of time. At the same time, he's also immune to the origin devouring agent. Xue Yin's eyes revealed a look of surprise. Her attitude suddenly became polite. Mr. Ding Meng, please sit. Only after Ding Meng sat down did Xue Yin slowly sit down across from him. She asked a very strange question. Mr. Ding Meng, do you think my face is a bit strange? Ding Meng nodded. It is a bit. It doesn't look normal. Xue Yin suddenly smiled. It would have been better if she hadn't smiled. When she smiled, the wrinkles on her face became even more obvious. Moreover, due to the contraction and compression of her muscles, a yellow liquid flowed out from the small holes on her face. Her appearance was truly strange and terrifying. Meng Yan explained dejectedly. Mr. Ting, in our area, only Aunt Xue Yin's appearance is the most normal. Then there's Xiao Wei. The 2 of them are relatively normal. Ding Meng asked, are the others abnormal? Meng Yan said, before I landed, I informed Xiao Wei and told everyone to return to their rooms. I was afraid that they would scare you. Ding Meng was speechless. If Xue Yin's appearance was considered normal, then he could not imagine what the others' appearances were like. Meng Yan seemed to know what he was thinking. She took the initiative to explain, Aunt Xue Yin's appearance is slightly normal. That's because she's using her profound origin energy to slow down the deterioration. Ding Meng understood quite a bit now. What kind of poison did you guys get? Xu Yin's gaze turned to the wall again. Do you see that painting? Ding Ming asked curiously. Who is he? Xu Yin's tone sounded very sad. His surname is Zhu, and his name is Zhu Lixian. He's my husband. He's a biochemical origin energy user and a doctor. Many years ago, he worked for the Holy Grail Federation. Unfortunately, Little Rascal's database could not provide the relevant information this time. Ding Ming could only carefully ask, where is this Dr. Zhu now? Xu Yin let out a long sigh. He's been dead for 66 years, 3 months, and 9 days. There was not much sadness in her tone. There was only a thick sense of pride and endless nostalgia. She even remembered the time so accurately. Presumably, when Dr. Zhu was still alive, he had a very deep relationship with Xu Yin. Xu Yin also worshipped her husband very much. Ding Ming pondered and said, I'm thinking that Dr. Zhu must have been an amazing person when he was alive. Mr. Ding Ming, you have a very good eye. Xu Yin praised, and a strange glow appeared in her eyes. Yes, he was indeed a very great person. He was the one who developed the antidote for the famous world-devouring virus, Little Red Riding Hood. Only then did Ding Ming reveal a surprised expression. Previously, he felt that there were many strange things about Xu Yin that could not be separated from the world-devouring virus. Now, it seemed that this was indeed the case. It should be said that everyone here was related to the world-devouring virus. Xu Yin's mind seemed to have returned to many years ago. She sighed and said, Mr. Ding Ming, you should know about the war between the Holy Grail Federation and the world-devouring virus many years ago, right? Ding Ming had known about it for a long time. 80 years ago, when the Holy Grail Federation and the Norse Empire were in full swing, the world-devouring virus took advantage of the situation and crossed the Zirital star field in one fell swoop, launching an attack on the Federation. In the beginning, the Federation did not take the world-devouring virus seriously. They only sent a few large fleets to the border space station to guard it. However, gradually, the world-devouring virus expanded to the observation area and then continued to advance, breaking through the border in one fell swoop. This news immediately shook the entire Federation. This was the first time the Federation directly confronted an alien civilization on a large scale, and the human fleets were utterly defeated. The Federation's technology was far beyond the world-devouring virus, but the world-devouring virus poison was not something the human soldiers could resist. Even if the Federation sent reinforcements from various places, they still could not stop the invasion of the world-devouring virus. In just 5 years, the world-devouring virus occupied 2/5 of the Federation's territory, which was almost half of the country. The Federation had to fight against the Norse Empire and defend against the world-devouring virus attack. It could be said that they were attacked from both sides, and it was very difficult for them to hold on. The Norse Empire was also fighting on 2 fronts. In front of them was the space fortress of the Federation, and behind them was the mechanical jungle of the Frogman Kingdom. They were also having a hard time. Under these circumstances, the leaders of the Holy Grail Federation and the Norse Empire came to an agreement. Give up the war and strive for peace. Both sides signed a 100-year armistice agreement, and everyone turned their guns to the alien beasts. As soon as the agreement was signed, the fleets and experts of the 2 countries retreated, and they began to assemble an unprecedentedly powerful force to reclaim their lost territory. The Federation's progress was fast, and it took them less than 3 years to drive the world-devouring virus back to the Zirital system. However, they also paid a heavy price. Nearly 2 billion soldiers and civilians were infected with the virus and died. There were all kinds of strange and pervasive poisons in the devouring world, which became the biggest problem for the St. Brilliance Federation. The famous Little Red Riding Hood was one of them. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.